This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Bryan, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. Mrs. Gray will see you now. It's 50 Shades Freed, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. Oh, Katie. So excited.
I'm amped.
Amped to be done. This is the final episode of our summer series. We're covering 50 Shades Freed. We wanted to remind you before we get into that, because we have a lot to talk about, that you can do us a giant favor by heading over to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Support us for a couple bucks a month over there and get access at $5 and up a month. You get access to our bonus content, but you can support us for as little as $2 a month. And know that you're supporting us. You get early access at that level, some other stuff. But go check it out. This Film is Lit over on Patreon. Like our bonus content, we have some really, I think we put out some great episodes on our bonus content. We just did an episode on Dirty Dancing that came out about a week ago that I thought was very interesting, very fun. Our next episode is going to be on School of Rock, which is one of my favorite movies. So yes, lots of fun stuff over on the bonus feed at Patreon. So go check that out. Also, do us a giant favor. If you're new to the show, if you just came for 50 Shades, but you're enjoying it, go follow us on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, all those places. Interact. We love to see what you have to say. And we see what you have to say on the prequel episodes. So check out those prequel episodes in between each main episode where we talk about the feedback we got from all of you lovely listeners. But now it's time to wrap this thing up. It's time for 50 Shades Freed. And if you haven't seen it or read it, here is a brief summary.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Newlyweds Christian and Anastasia are enjoying a long honeymoon gallivanting around Europe when they're forced to cut the trip short after Christian is informed that someone broke into Grey HQ, stole files, and started a fire. Anna recognizes the man in the security footage as Jack Hyde, her former boss who was fired by Christian for sexually assaulting her. Upon returning home to Seattle, Anna receives a new security detail, and Christian surprises her by buying a gigantic old house on the bay for them to renovate and move into. We have a brief run-in with Gia Mateo, the attractive architect that is planning their renovation, and with whom Anna has put in her place for attempting to hit on Christian. While Christian is away on business, Anna ignores his desire for her to stay home and spends a night out getting drinks with her longtime best friend, Kate. When she arrives home that evening, Jack Hyde is waiting inside the apartment and attempts to kidnap Anna before being stopped by Anna's bodyguards and arrested. Christian returns home from his trip thoroughly upset over Anna disobeying his orders to stay home, and the two hash out the dynamics of their relationship and Christian's suffocating desire to be in control, something one might have considered doing before getting married.
That was a little bit of parenthetical in my summary there. Sorry. Continue.
After making up, Christian surprises Anna with a weekend trip to Aspen with her friends. On the trip, Elliot proposes to Kate and she accepts. Back in Seattle, Christian and Elliot continue their newlyweds. I didn't even notice.
I didn't notice I did that. It's a whole different slash fic there. Goodness. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Back in Seattle, Christian and Anna continue their newlywed sexual escapades. And we see Anna enjoying it more and more before ... she finds out she is pregnant. She tells Christian and he does not react well, ultimately going on an overnight bender where he reunites with Elena Lincoln for advice, this being the woman who sexually abused him as a child and introduced him to BDSM. Anna discovers he spent the evening talking to Elena, and the two have a very large fight about it, with Anna dropping an ultimatum that she will choose the baby over Christian if it comes to that. Later that day, Anna gets a call from Mia, but it turns out to be Jack Hyde, who has kidnapped Mia and is now holding her ransom for $5 million. Anna springs into action to attempt to save Mia by heading to the bank, collecting the money, and going to meet Jack. After arriving with the money, Jack assaults Anna, concussing her and breaking several ribs, but before she passes out, Anna manages to shoot Jack in the leg with Layla's gun that Christian was keeping in his desk. The police, tipped off by Christian, who figured out what was going on after a brief call with Anna, arrive in time to arrest Jack and his accomplice Elizabeth, more on this later, and save Anna. Anna recovers in the hospital where she and Christian again hash out more relationship issues, with Anna reassuring him that he will be a good father. The film ends with Anna initiating a night of BDSM in the playroom as she has realized she enjoys the lifestyle. Oh, also, there's an epilogue where they have 2 kids. The end.
The end. All right. That is a brief synopsis of 50 Shades, mostly sourced from Wikipedia with a few editor's notes by myself. Let's go ahead and get into our main discussion and talk about the things that we thought were better in the book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
So the book starts with them on their honeymoon,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on a beach. And Christian...
Yes, a French beach.
A French beach. And Christian is wearing cut-off jorts
Yeah, the sexiest.
to the beach.
The sexiest
This
of
is
leg coverings.
the sexiest thing possible. But not only is he wearing cut-off jorts, he also wears them over his swim trunks.
Yeah.
And I'm really upset that nobody made Jamie Dornan wear cut-off jorts over swim trunks in this movie.
Very disappointing. I will agree with that. So I'm kind of jokingly putting this in better in the book, but as we move forward, there's we keep getting the opening of this book. We get like we're on the honeymoon, but we keep getting flashbacks to like the wedding and other events that led up to the honeymoon, basically. And we have one of those flashbacks is a very brief aside where we flash back to Anna shaving her vagina.
Mm-hmm.
And that is amazing. It's the funniest reason for a flashback I have ever read in a book. And then also at the end of that scene, Christian says she missed a spot and shaves her. And to each their own. But don't like that. Anyways, that's just my favorite reason for a flashback ever. It's like, oh, like I'm just imagining like, you know, the TV show flashback sound effects. And it's just back to when that one time she shaved her vagina for the first time. I don't know. It's very funny to me. Also, I have this note in better in the book. It's not better in the book, but I have it here because I think it cuts to the core. It lays bare what the core fantasy of this book is. There is a line that Christian says in the book that is not in the film, that he says to Anna, and I believe it's around this scene, the shaving scene, or somewhere in there. And he says, she's like, oh, I you give me all these things, blah, blah, blah. You want to give me the world or something like that. And he responds by saying, we despots do that for the women we love. And I was like, that's it. That's the fantasy. That's you're being the kept woman of a king. You get all of the benefits of being like royalty / insanely rich, which if you're a billionaire and you're basically your life is indistinguishable from royalty in the amount of political influence and extravagant, wealth and opportunity that you have. But you get to foist all of that responsibility and all the moral implications for it onto someone else. Christian is the billionaire. She just gets to live the lifestyle of a billionaire, but doesn't have to like grapple with anything about what it means. Yeah. She gets to be like, which is a thing. It's a big running thing that I seemed very apparent, especially in this book, but in all of them. It's that fantasy. That's part of the fantasy is I get all of these things, but I don't have to. I get to be like, this isn't me. I don't want this. Like the whole book, Anna's like, I'm not into this money. I don't like this money. I have a simpler taste, and I have a note about this later that we'll talk about. But she's like, I have simpler tastes and blah, blah, blah. And it's like she always is trying to reject all this money. But at the end of the day, she still gets to live the life of a billionaire.
Yes.
And I think that is a very much cooked into the whole fantasy of what is going on here. In the same way, it's actually very similar to, it kind of runs parallel to the sexual aspect. It gets to play the coy, prude, like, I don't even know, like, not virgin, but like, you know, like she plays this. It's almost like you have this character who is playing this like, oh, this stuff's all like, oh, it's so wild and kinky and strange, and I don't. But like, also she does all of it and is into it. Yeah. But gets to play like the maiden at the same time.
Yeah, she gets to be the innocent maiden and also enjoy the benefits of the sexual exploits.
And it's like the same thing except with the wealth.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Anyways. But that line is like, we despots do that for the women we love, I thought was, kind of summarize that in just a handful of words. There's a line in the film that is not in the book, and this is better in the book because it's not in the book, where during the confrontation with Gia Mateo, Anna says to her, after she like reels off her whole spiel about how she needs to stop hitting on Christian, she goes, so you can give us new plans and you can stop hitting on my husband, or you can climb back into your shit-colored car and go back to Seattle. And that's just a terrible line. Your shit-colored car. I didn't even...
Ooh, burn.
It's just so juvenile and dumb. Like, it's just a bad line. It's not good, and it's not in the book. And that was a fail by whoever added that line to the film.
Mr. E.L. James.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. And then you may disagree with this because you had this scene in a different place. Well, you didn't even really mention the scene. You just had an aspect of the scene in a different section.
Yeah.
But the scene it makes a brief appearance in the film where she cuts his hair. Mm-hmm. In the film, or in the book and in the film, she like washes his hair first. And then in the book, after she washes his hair, they like have sex. And then after they have sex, she cuts his hair. And I thought, and it is a low bar, but of all of the sex scenes in all of these books, I thought that scene was the most erotic of maybe any of the sex, and like the most well-written and like enjoyable to read. And I didn't cringe out of my skin reading it. Like, and so I was like, that was like the best sex scene in any of these books, again, in my opinion. And it's in the movie for like a millisecond, and they focused on other sex scenes in the film, which I just thought was a missed opportunity because, again, I thought that one had the most to work with, but whatever.
I had a note as I was reading that I thought the sex scenes weren't as bad in this one.
I think overall, yes.
Like overall, we're not, again, very low bar, they're not good, but not as bad as the first two books. But then I was like, or am I just used to it?
It could be that too.
I don't know. I'm not sure at this point.
I will just say I found aspects of the scene where they have sex before she cuts his hair to be genuinely like, yeah, this is like fine. Mm-hmm. Like it's pretty good. But again, my expectations have plummeted to the floor. So maybe it was clearing a low bar there. So who knows?
The movie cuts a little thing, and I understand why they cut it because it doesn't pan out and it doesn't mean anything. But we find out in the book that Taylor, the main security guy, and Mrs. Jones, the housekeeper, have gotten together. They've got a thing going on.
Anna stumbles across them like making out.
Yeah. And like again, it doesn't matter. But when that happened on page 181, I was like, that's the best news I've had in 181 pages.
I agree.
I'm rooting for these two way more than Anna and Christian.
I absolutely agree. And I thought it was going to turn into a whole thing. And I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised that it didn't, because what I thought was going to happen, because that to me felt like a thing that Christian would not abide. Mm-hmm. As soon as she saw that happening, I thought she was going to be like, oh, Christian wouldn't be happy about this. And she was going to have to keep it secret from him. And then he was going to find out and it was going to turn into a whole big thing.
Oh, how dare you keep secrets.
Well, yeah. And he's going to be mad at her for keeping secrets. He's going to be mad at them because he doesn't want his help, doing that. Like he would think.
Fraternizing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking it was going to be a big thing. And I actually was like, oh, it just, he knows. Like she goes back and tells him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm aware. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay. That's like, all right, yeah. I was
a
like,
very reasonable response from one Mr. Christian Grey.
yeah. And I was like, and so I agree that it was a little disappointing that it just again, I get why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't go anywhere. You could have used it to seed a little thing where at the end, because Taylor's daughter comes to live, at least in the book epilogue, you could have used it to seed a little thing where we see like her and Taylor together.
Yeah.
Like at the new house in the epilogue. They got married, whatever.
Yeah.
You could do that, but it's not, again, the book doesn't do anything with it. So makes sense to cut it.
This is another thing that I understand why the movie cuts, but I was a little sad that we skipped over the insane revelation that Christian does not want or like that his security detail sometimes carries guns because he hates guns so much. And like, okay, I'm pro gun control, but why even have security at that point?
If you're going to be a billionaire who's like incredibly protective and like and like neurotic about safety and like you would think like he wouldn't want to carry a gun, but like his security
should have guns. And then later on when they catch Jack Hyde, they don't have anything to restrain him with either.
No.
Like Anna has to go get zip ties.
Yeah.
Like what are you guys? Are you even security? Why don't you have any tools?
Yeah. And it's very funny because Anna ends up being like the pro Second Amendment character, which I almost felt like was E.L. James doing like not a course correction, but like, I have to imagine that most of the people who would have read this book or whatever, and most of her target audience, it's about like people who live in Seattle and stuff. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe I don't, and I don't know what her political, at least some of them I kind of get a feeling, but like in terms of like gun, I have no idea. She's British, so
who knows?
Who knows? But I was wondering almost if it was sort of like a balancing out of their characters of trying to like subvert, like you would think again that the megalomaniacal like billionaire who's like super crazy about security and stuff would be like super not super into guns necessarily, but like would be fine with it, and Anna being like this more demure like but I don't know, it is interesting that she ends up making Anna be like super pro gun.
I felt like, because I know we've talked about Anna knowing how to shoot guns before.
Yes, because Ray was in the
books.
army or something.
He was in the army, so he teaches her how to shoot, blah, blah, blah. But in this book, like, she has a line specifically about the Second Amendment.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, did she make Anna a Second Amendment weirdo? Like, I am screaming at this.
The sentence is amazing. The sentence, because I wrote it down, it cracked me up so much. She thinks to herself, my overbearing husband who refuses to exercise his Second Amendment rights under the Constitution. I shall protect you always. What? Okay, Aragorn. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, it's the weirdest. It caught me so off guard.
I felt like I felt like she's writing this. We've talked about how it's fan fiction, so it was published serially. And I felt like at this point in the story, she like had just then learned that Second Amendment nuts were a thing in America, and she like hurried up to wedge that into her book.
It does. It's very interesting. I don't know. It's kind of it's a little it feels a little out of character potentially, but maybe not. Again, just the Anna's like, I will protect you. I will mow down any intruders with my Glock. It was just so, I don't know. It was so strange. There is they cut like all the emails out of the film, which is good. But there's one email in particular that she sends after the whole Jack almost abducting her part. And then Christian comes home, and we'll talk about that whole scene later. But she finds out, she's able to figure out by talking to Christian that he came home he was in New York on business, and he rushed home not when he found out that there had been a break-in and that Jack had been there, but before, when he found out that Anna had disobeyed him and gone out for drinks. Yeah. That was what had prompted him to rush home. And she calls him out for this. And I thought that was like that particular detail of her like realizing that he was reacting to the wrong stimulus and
Yeah.
like being upset over the wrong thing. And she actually has a very good email calling him out over this. And overall, this is sort of replaced in the book with just better conversations. Overall, like, again, in general, the conversations they have in the book are like more normal human conversations than what happened the conversations in the film are more normal human conversations than what happened in the book for the most part. Although this one has the best conversation, like the best, most like, yeah, you almost both sound like adults, like, that can handle and be in a relationship. And I think that is a little bit the point. I think we're going for a little bit of the arc here, like, you know,
Right,
like
we're
get
trying
to a
for
point
it.
where, yeah, but it still doesn't mean it's not frustrating the rest of the time when it's like, why are you guys all acting like children? Okay.
I could not believe that this book didn't make me read Food Sex, but the movie made me watch it.
Yep.
I was betrayed.
I wondered if there
vile betrayal.
I legitimately wondered if it was because of outcry that the ice cream sex scene from the first book was cut from that film. And so they had to add it to this one because in Aspen, they have a scene where they smear vanilla ice cream on each other and lick it off and then have sex on the table. And I can only think that because that scene basically happens in the first one. And I was like, was somebody just so mad?
Yeah, well, probably Erica.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
But they're in the kitchen at night. And first of all, if I was sharing a house with friends on vacation and I found out that two of them had sex on the kitchen table, I would be furious.
And it's even weirder because it's their siblings.
Yeah.
It's already weird, but it's his brother and sister are there.
Yeah.
It's real weird.
But so she's sitting on the table. They're doing their ice cream thing. She's sitting up on the table and he's like kneeling in front of her and he scoops up a big spoonful of vanilla ice cream. And my hand to God, I thought he was going to stick that spoon of ice cream into her vagina.
I mean, I don't disagree. I was like,
wouldn't have even been like out of the norm for this year. I mean, maybe for the movies,
for the films,
not for the book.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was hoping the whole time it was gonna cut to Jose standing in the corner in a shadow, just glaring at them, like just angrily masturbating in the corner. Because it's just like he's there, and it's very funny to me. But yeah, that's it was unfortunate that they had to bring that back. So there's this scene that is in the book that is not in the film at all. And I didn't know where to put this. I'm going to put it in better in the book. I think the movie cuts this for good reason. And I don't think it's necessarily handled the best in the book, but it's at least interesting. There's like a consensual, non-consensual sex scene in this book where like they like wrestle and have sex and like she's fighting him and stuff. And it's handled not the worst in the world, I feel like, but also I don't know. I just it makes perfect sense that you would cut this from the film. I also think it probably should have been cut from the book based on the relationship dynamics of the people involved in this.
I put it in better in the movie because the movie cut it, like you said. And I read that scene and I mean, I agree that it wasn't handled the worst in the world, especially given the track record for these books. But I was like, I don't know. Consensual non-consent feels like a lot for you guys.
Oh, it's well beyond anything they should
feels
be.
Like something that maybe you should get to know each other a little more.
You guys should steer clear of that, especially because you're just doing it like for real, like half the time.
Yeah, right.
Like you're just actually doing non-consent like half the time. So it's yeah.
So harken back with me to book number 1, when Christian goes to the hardware store. When he stalks Anna to the hardware store where she works.
Yes, yeah.
And in the book, this gets cut from the movie, but in the book, he buys a pair of coveralls.
Yeah.
At her suggestion. Yes. And I was like, man, if those coveralls don't come back, I'm going to be so disappointed. But lo and behold, they came back in this book.
They make a reappearance.
He does not wear them for sexy time,
No.
He does wear them to go fishing.
Which is, I don't know why you would wear coveralls. I guess you just being outdoors.
yeah.
It's not the word, but it's still, because they're like construction cover.
Yeah.
I assumed he bought like a painter's jumpsuit.
Right. That was what I assumed.
When you're at a hardware store and you buy a coveralls, I'm not thinking you're buying like, like a construction, like insulated. Like, you don't buy that on a whim at a construction store. You would buy like one of those painter suits or something. And so I assumed it was that. And if it was one of those painter suits, you would not, because they're like made out of plastic or whatever, or even like a cheap material. You wouldn't wear those to go fishing. So it would have to be the other kind of cover. It's just I don't think it adds up, but anyways, it is. They do make a reappearance.
Also in Aspen, we mentioned that Elliot proposes to Kate. And I thought that the actor in the movie did kind of a terrible job with the proposal scene.
I didn't think it was great.
I think he was going for nervous, but he kind of just looked like he really didn't want to be there.
Kind of looked upset. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Because I actually thought in the book, my note when I read that scene was, "Hey, that was a pretty good proposal, Elliot. Well done." Like it was pretty sweet. Like it was well written or whatever. That being said, proposing in front of friends and a restaurant full of people, if you aren't 100% sure of the answer, is a terrible idea. And even if you are 100% sure, just in general, I'm like, that needs to be a thing. I'm against public proposals pretty much in general. Like, unless you have discussed it beforehand or something.
Right. If you know that your intended really wants a public proposal, that's one thing.
Yes. If you've talked about it and they're like, "Oh, my dream is to be proposed to at Disney World," or something. Like, yeah okay,
whatever.
Sure. Yeah. But just to spring it on somebody is a terrible, don't do that. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Don't do it.
I know it sounds rich coming from somebody who proposed technically kind of publicly, but it was intentionally not public.
Right.
To the point where, as if anything had gone astray, we could have just not released it, or it would have nobody would have ever known.
No one would have been the wiser.
Yeah. But I also knew what the answer was going to be, so.
I was hoping in that scene in the book after Elliot proposed, I was like, okay, now we need Ethan to propose to Mia so that this series can end with a double wedding, like a Shakespeare comedy.
Oh, absolutely.
Didn't happen, but I wish it would have.
Yeah. No, it would have been fun. They could have done a triple if they would have got Taylor and Jones in there. Could have got all three of them going. I did just wanted to, in case you are a new listener or only listen to the 50 Shades episode, and realizing my reference to the public proposal or what might not make any sense. I proposed to Katie on the podcast. If you want to listen, you can go back to the Stardust episode, which is like
it was a long time ago at this point.
In the first 50 episodes. It was like, maybe in the first 20. I'm not sure. But it was very early in the show. But it's the Stardust episode, and it's like the first 5 or 6 minutes. If you would like to hear it, you can go check that out. And we're getting married in like a month, so there you go. Bookend that.
Question. This is a great question coming off of talking about our marriage proposal. Is there some kind of taboo in film against showing someone being penetrated doggy style?
I think there might be. I don't know. Because
it was really weird to me in the movie that he put the butt plug in her while she was laying on her back. Like, it can be done.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I don't know. That it seems odd, and it seems like an odd choice for, like, her first time doing that, especially.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't know. There may be some sort of rules about that. I don't know. I have no idea. And a cursory Google while you were reading that did not, only returned results that cannot be aired on this podcast. So I typed film standards doggy style and nothing good came up. So actually the first one was very funny. It was film rules for safe handling of animals on set. So, or something like that. So anyways, the last note we have for better in the book is, and this got me so good, is that after Anna ends up in the hospital at the end, her nurse there is named Nurse Nora. And she just hates Christian.
She gets
the read of him immediately and is like, this guy is bad news. Like, she hates him. She can't stand him the whole time. She's like judging him and everything he's doing, and she can tell he's like a creepy weirdo. And I just love that at least one human, I mean, Kate does a little bit throughout, but I love that there's at least one person who's just like, this fucking guy. And it's the random nurse at the end of the book. And we're not even supposed to get that out of it because in the context of the book, we're supposed to like not like the nurse kind of maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's yeah, but it was just very funny to me that
Yeah, I feel like it was Erica subconsciously recognizing
yeah
the
that a
kind
no
of
nonsense
character
nurse
she
would,
wrote.
yeah, that a no nonsense nurse would be like this. I've seen a million of these guys. Oh, you fell down the stairs. Okay, yeah, all right.
Oh, she got attacked by her ex.
Yeah,
Mhm,
okay, yeah, right, sure, yeah, exactly. Oh, goodness. All right. Pretty short list for better in the book, but we got quite a few things to talk about in better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
Oh, yeah. Turn the movie on, and the time little bar at the bottom pops up, and it says an hour and 45 minutes, and my heart
Hallelujah.
sang. My heart sang. It is the shortest of the three films, which is impressive for the final. Usually they get longer in a series, but this one, this is the shortest, which, to be fair, not a lot happens. So it makes sense. But still, I was very excited for an hour 45. I was like, let's do it.
Really love that we lost the prologue.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in the prologue of this book.
It's only a couple pages. Like the prologue in this is very short. It's like 2 or 3 pages. But it's just a flashback to when his mom died, which we've already kind of seen in other prologues and stuff. I guess not specifically when she died, but we've seen similar.
We've seen very similar scenes of him as a child with his mom. I hate how E.L. James does the writing in those sections where it's like it's like short little staccato sentences.
Writing like
I know she thinks she's writing like
voice,
a kid, but she's actually just writing really annoyingly. So we lose all of that, and we also lose their entire argument about including obey in their marriage vows.
Is that in the prologue?
They talk about it in the prologue.
Oh, it's at
That's
the
like
end
the
when
first place it comes up.
It's because he wakes up from the dream or from the nightmare. And at the end, she says something like, wait. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong book. I saw the prologue and I was like, okay, that's the prologue, but I don't see anything about the vows in there. And then I turned to the first page and it said, I have survived day 3 post-Christian. And I was like, wait a second, what? Wrong book. I was looking at the 50 Shades Darker.
Yeah. He wakes up, and this section is in third person for some reason. He says, please, or maybe she says?
Yeah, we don't,
I don't, please let's not fight. Okay. And then the vows, no obeying. I can do that. We'll find a way.
Yeah.
The words rush out of his mouth in a tumble of emotion and confusion and anxiety. So you find out more about this as the book progresses, that they had a huge argument because Christian wanted lines about her vowing to obey him in their marriage vows. And she was like, I think the fuck not. Which,
good. Yes, good. Gross. Weird. Oh, by the way, that's the only vow you're allowed to have in our wedding. Is that
I'm going to vow not to obey you.
I hope so. I would expect nothing less.
But I really liked that this movie just started with the wedding, and we moved forward into the honeymoon. I wasn't a huge fan of Erica's experimentation with like non-linear storytelling at the beginning of this book. We kind of like bounced back and forth between the wedding and the honeymoon, and I just found it a little meh. I had this in better in the book because I specifically enjoyed that we started on the honeymoon, and the main reason for that is because it contrasted so much with what it aligned with what I wanted for the second book, which is that I hoped we would jump ahead a little bit and not just start immediately where we left off the last book with her with it. It's day 3 post-Christian or whatever. And I was like, oh, God. And so I was like, oh, we're moving forward. Things are happening. We're on their honeymoon. We can skip the wedding. Maybe we'll get like, all right, great. I was excited for things to move forward. And so I liked it. I don't disagree that it's not exemplar. It's not like the most exemplary example of nonlinear storytelling. Yeah, she doesn't have the deftest hand at it.
No, I don't disagree with that. But I didn't mind, again, my heart was just excited for the story to be progressing at a faster rate. So I was like, oh yeah, honeymoon, great, let's do it.
That's fair. They also mention in this section in the book that Christian insisted on getting married in a month.
Yeah.
So they planned this whole wedding in a month. And I was like, I mean, that's feasible when you have unlimited money.
Yeah, that was my note. I was like, because that was like a month. And
But
I was like,
also like, why would you do that to yourself? And I don't know. I would be mad if that were me. I would be like, I want to have the experience of like a bridal shower and a bachelorette party and like getting to do all of the stuff.
Well, and especially when you're a billionaire and planning a wedding is not
fun.
stressful at all. It's just fun.
You can literally just taste things and sign off on them.
Yeah, you hire a wedding planner. You just get to go show up places and try. And I don't want to say not stressful at all. I'm sure it's a little stressful, but like fucking rich people stressful, which is like not stressful. So like, you know, it's like, I agree. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. It's just another red flag to me because it's like, why does it matter? You guys live together.
Yeah, well,
like,
he's just it's because he's
it's a red flag.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, absolutely. I will say on the honeymoon, one of the things I liked in the film is I liked that we just get kind of like a fun montage in the film of them like doing fun European vacation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it got across, like it did a better job of showing them having fun together than kind of really anything we get in the book.
Yeah.
And just makes you be like, oh yeah, look at them gallivanting around Europe. Look, that seems fun. But speaking of the wedding specifically, this cracked me up. Keep in mind, as we have mentioned several times, Christian Grey is a billionaire.
Yeah. Unlimited money.
Unlimited money. They have a buffet at their wedding.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Plated
not.
Service only.
We're having a buffet at our wedding because we are not billionaires. Like that is, I was like, there's no way. There's just no way that you're gonna have your guests at your billionaire wedding get up and go ladle green beans out of a freaking hot plate. Like it's just not gonna happen. It's so silly. But anyways, in the movie we don't see any of the reception or anything, so we don't see the buffet that they would surely not have.
In the book, he makes her travel in her wedding gown.
Yes.
And that's insane.
He specifically says, nobody takes this off you except me.
You could still take it off of her. What? Why?
I don't know.
I'm imagining sitting on a plane in the dress that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm miserable just imagining it.
Well, getting in the car, driving to the airport, going
through the airport, getting in the plane.
Well, they probably don't go through the airport.
Well,
they probably get to drive right up to their private airplane.
Still.
Or yes.
But in the movie we see that she's wearing like a sensible white pantsuit.
Yeah, she changes into like a suit kind of deal.
Which is a pretty common thing to do if you leave for your honeymoon right after the wedding.
Yeah. Yep.
The movie cuts them having sex in the ocean.
Yes, they do have sex in the ocean.
Sex in the ocean.
Terrible idea.
And specifically Christian's asking her, "Shall I take you in the sea?" And I just want to know.
She's not a mermaid, man.
I just want to know, Erica, what your thing with water and sex is. Why is it that every time there's a body of water nearby, they need to be fucking in it?
I don't know.
I don't.
It's very unsanitary. Not a great idea at all.
The movie also tempers Christian's insane reaction to Anna being topless on a topless beach.
Yes.
Like the movie makes it feel almost reasonable.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that for sure. He reacts like a psycho in the book. I will say Anna's motivations in the book I thought were maybe more. I could go either way in it, but I liked in the book because we're in her head. She like specifically does it to like defy him. Mm-hmm. She's like, let's see what he makes of this. Like when he because he's like, oh, she's like, maybe I could just go topless. Nobody else has it's like a nude beach, like whatever, like everybody's topless. And he's like, no, and she's like, all right, fuck you then, and takes it off. And in the book or in the film, it more feels like she doesn't even really think about it. She just kind of does it, which is also fine. I don't have a problem with that either. But I don't know. I liked that adding a little bit of like defiance to her motivation in the book. But I agree because the main thing he mentions in the in the film as like why he's upset. He's like, well, you want your boobs all over the tabloid or something like that. He's like, people will take pictures because, you know, you're married to me or whatever. And like, I guess I get that, but it also just feels, the way they talk about it is just so lame and like,
I agree.
I don't know. Something about it still just feels.
The movie tempers it a little bit by focusing more on the tabloid thing and less on him just being an insane, psychotic, controlling, jealous person.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's fair, you know, and probably good for him to point out to her that, like, this is a thing that could happen.
Right. It is a good thing to tell her about.
He's used to that kind of thing, whereas she would not be.
Right.
And then so the movie tempers it a little bit by making that more of the focus.
Again, I think ideally the way that conversation, if it were like me, how that conversation would go would be like, hey, if you want to go topless, go for it. Just letting you know, you might end up on some magazines. Like, let them know that that's a possibility and let them decide, and not be like, you don't want your tits all over the magazine, do you, you whore? Like, that's...
Yes, I do.
That. Yeah, because, like, maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't care, dude. Like, it's just... The way they talk about the whole thing is just very, like, sex negative to me in a way that feels gross.
I agree. And then later on, he's taking the bikini off of her, like, back on their yacht or whatever. And in the book, he says, tomorrow I will staple this to you.
Yeah.
Which the movie changes to glue.
Yeah.
Which, like, is still bad, but it feels less violent.
It's definitely less violent. Like, it's a little more playful, a little less violent.
Yeah.
Although all of the things in the film come across that way, and I think it's just because of how Jamie Dornan delivers it. Like, a lot of his, like, creepy, controlling stuff comes across a little more playful and a little less
a little
menacing.
Yeah. Movie cuts. They're talking about, I think they're talking about, like, the day that she agreed to, like, embark on this relationship with him.
Yeah.
Or, like, she signed the contract even though she never actually does that.
Right.
And he's like, I remember that day well, your graduation. And I was like, yeah, of course you remembered. It was like 4 months ago.
Yeah, right.
The frenetic pace of this entire story would be less of an issue if the characters did not act like XYZ thing happened so long ago.
Yes.
Because every time they act like it's been an eternity, when in reality it's been a couple months.
It's been months. It's been from, so it is, we're recording this on September 13th. So 4 months ago is, what is that? I can't do backward months. 1, 2, 3, May 14th or June 14th, depending on how you count it, I guess. But that's like so recently.
Yeah.
That's like yesterday.
Because we know that in the first book, it was her graduation.
That's when we did the first episode of this show or of this series.
So their relationship is the same length as our summer series.
We planned that on purpose, guys. That was all planned. It's all been a long con just to show you how ridiculous it is that we covered this series over the entire length of their relationship in the books.
Anyway, the movie rectifies this by simply not telling us how long it's been in between events. Just don't tell us.
Yeah.
Leave it vague. It's fine. We'll all live.
Yeah.
So at this point in our notes, I decided to plunk us down a not being in Anna's head section.
Yes. Great section.
Because it's one of the biggest improvements, book to movie, is not being in Anna's perspective and hearing all of her thoughts. So I left a space for some highlights here.
Absolutely.
First off, while they're on the plane to their honeymoon, Christian proposes sex. Anna thinks to herself, the Mile High Club. I've heard about this.
I've heard of this.
I don't know why, but that absolutely sent me. I was laughing so hard.
It's very funny.
And then later on, they had sex, and then she falls asleep, and then a pressing need from my bladder wakes me. Which, first of all, I don't need to know that. Secondly, I was like, oh, is this going to be the book where she finally gets a bladder
For never
infection?
using the restroom after having so much sex. Yeah.
If she does get a bladder infection, we never hear about it.
No.
But
No,
I
think this
feel
is-
like she would just have one constantly.
I think this might be one of those little clues. Oh, you're pregnant. I don't know if
Oh.
that's a thing, but I like if,
Yeah, I
if needing
guess.
to pee in the middle of the night is a pregnancy thing or not, but it wouldn't surprise me. It seems like a thing that might be.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, this might be what that is. Maybe. I don't know. The movie cuts this line from Anna's inner thoughts. Mr. Orgasmic was using his fine motor sexing skills on me.
Okay.
Mr.
Alright.
Orgasmic. His fine motor sexing skills is fine
This
motor
is fine
sexing
motor
skills.
skills. Did he learn that in kindergarten?
Yeah.
This is
it's-
fine motor skills.
That's very strange. I don't like that sentence.
She also thinks, I don't even remember what the context of this is. It could be literally anything in this book. Thinks to herself, I refuse to be intimidated by him. He's my husband, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a sentence.
What a sentence.
What a thought.
I mean, good.
I guess.
I guess.
But like
But the fact that you have to have that thought's a little upsetting. Yeah.
the way that she thinks about him, though, is like equal parts horrifying and unbearably cringe.
Yes.
Like the next one I have is her reference to him is his dear, dear face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she thinks about him
wait.
the same. They both infantilize each other in
Yes.
like very strange ways. She
Yes.
constantly thinks about him as this injured little boy who, like, you know, who was abused
Yeah.
as a child and
Little
and-
baby bird that she needs
yeah,
to
that she
protect.
needs, and he thinks of her. He like, and we have notes about it later. About it, he constantly is like, "You're so young. You look so young." Ugh. Like it's they constantly. His is grosser, but like hers is problematic in like an unhealthy relationship way. His is just gross, but like it's either way. They both do it in ways that is not healthy.
We saw the return of E.L. James's signature describing method.
Oh, it happens constantly still throughout this book.
this book. When we first meet Gia, the architect, and Anna thinks to herself, Gia, all lush hips, full breasts, expensive designer clothes, and perfume.
Yep. I was like, you're taking in some very specific details there, Anna. Those lush hips and full breasts, huh? First thing you notice about her. All right. Fair enough.
It must be noted. Very important.
The movie, and that's actually almost a better in the book note that I left out, is that the movie makes a running gag of her having fake boobs and making it like a thing that is not in the book.
Yeah.
Like the like everybody being like, whoa, she's got giant boobs. Are they real? Like that's not. And even in the film, I didn't feel like she had outlandishly large boobs.
No,
like,
she looks pretty normal.
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right, whatever. I don't know. Sure.
During the butt plug scene, the first butt plug scene, there's another one, isn't there, in the book?
There's at least one, and then there's like the main one early on, and then there's like I think a reference to it via email later. I don't know if we actually see. So in the film, the butt plug scene gets moved to later in the film, whereas it happens earlier in the book. But then there's a discussion. I don't remember. It's all very confusing once we get to that. But I think anyways, it is the early one. Yeah.
The scene in the book where he first puts the butt plug into her.
Yeah, which they did in the previous book, but not in the previous movie, right?
I thought this was the first time.
They didn't use a butt plug, but he did put a finger in.
Yes,
there
he does
in the
put
previous
a finger
book.
in there in the previous book. You're right. You're
That
right.
did not make it into the film.
No.
Because I had a big thing there. I was hoping that the music was gonna like soar in the film when that happened, and it did not.
So first time she uses butt plug in the book. The movie cuts her thinking he's going to put it there. And I don't know.
Ma'am, you're not old enough to be having sex.
Not old
you're
enough
not
for
mature
this.
enough to be maybe not old enough. You're not mature enough to be having sex.
Not mature enough. Why is the character of Anna contractually protected from having to say vagina, anus, or any of their various synonyms? She just thinks there.
Again, because
every time.
This is I think what's going on here is this is E.L. James knowing her audience, at least to some extent. And this is for people where the idea of anal sex is like incredibly taboo and like uncouth and unspoken, and so saying there is titillating and gets them thinking, but doesn't like immediately like put them off, I think is what's going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll cede to that. I just think it sounds stupid.
I don't disagree. I agree that it sounds silly and stupid, but I think that's the idea, is that it's...
And I will grant that it makes more sense for anal penetration.
Yes.
Because that is something that she would be less familiar
Right.
with than the idea of vaginal penetration.
Yeah.
But she also does it in book 1
Yes.
when he's gonna penetrate her vagina.
Yes.
So, like, I don't know.
Right. No, I don't disagree.
So then Anna, they've had a fight. I don't remember about what. And she's thinking about Christian and their relationship.
Yeah.
And this is maybe
It's really
it's
bad.
maybe the most genuinely bleak thing that I have ever read about a particularly like a newlywed relationship.
Yeah.
And she
They have been
thinks-
married for less than a month at this
they have
point.
been married for all of no time. And she thinks to herself, I just have to hang in there. And I was, oh, baby, no.
Yeah. Nightmare.
Listen, if you're thinking that about your relationship,
At any point.
you just have to leave.
Yeah. That's what you have to do.
Don't hang in there.
No.
Let go.
No. I mean, unless you're like, the only context I could see that being an acceptable thing to think to yourself is like, if you're actively engaging in bettering your relationship, you're like in therapy, you know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
both working, like you've had issues, but
Sure.
you're both working.
You're both working
and you
for
think
it.
to yourself, I just have to hang in there. We're going to work through this. Like that.
Yeah,
It's like
this is gonna
maybe
get
the
better.
only context, but
But that is not the context
No.
of this scene.
yeah.
Like, the context of this scene is her thinking about his terrible behavior.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And even the context I mentioned is probably not you probably shouldn't want to be thinking that. Like that shouldn't be the words popping into your head, even still. But anyways, yeah.
This book, I felt like book 2 backed off a little on this recurring motif. But book 3 really, really brought back the oh my's and the inner goddesses on force.
And her subconscious.
Yes. It was like every page.
Her subconscious makes constant appearances. And the thing in this one that I thought was really funny that I haven't better in the movie, just because obviously it's not in the film, is there's this running thing in this one where her subconscious is always reading some random
Yeah.
like romance literature, not romance literature, but like classic lit.
Yeah.
She's like my subconscious puts down her copy of Jane Eyre, pulls her glasses off and chews on the end. I'm like, what is? And each time it's like she puts down her anthology of Dickens, and I'm like, what is happening? What are we? And
Anna has a very rich inner life.
it actually legit made me think that this was somebody made the same comment in the first book that I did or that we did about how she has that offhand remark about like Christian's like, what do you like to read? And she's like, classic lit. And somebody was like,
what does that mean?
what is that? That's like, what? Just pick a thing.
That could be anything.
And so in this one, she's like, oh, you think I don't know what classic lit is? I Googled a whole list of them. Let me, every time, like every now and then, I'm just going to slap another one in here and have her subconscious be reading that book. It's just very funny to me. I don't know. Ugh.
The other thing that was fucking inescapable in this book, she does it on like every page, was thinking to herself, oh, 50.
Yeah, it does happen constantly.
God.
Yeah. It's such a terrible nickname.
It's
for a
an
person,
awful
too. It's just a
nickname.
terrible nickname.
It's
50
awful.
It's awful. What happens when he turns 50? She has to have like a super mega birthday. It's like it's your name day.
He's like, what?
What?
Because she never
Yeah,
calls
she
him
never
that to
does
his
that.
face.
Yeah.
It's only in her head.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
She also refers to Christian getting mad about her and Kate going out as cocktail gate. All right.
It's the classic everything's something gate.
Yep. And my last note here, going back to Gia, it's weird, Anna, that you keep calling Gia well-groomed. She does it multiple times. And it's weird.
Because she's a bitch, get it?
I
Well-groomed,
yes,
like
she's
a dog.
well-groomed. It's weird. Every time she sees her, she's like, that well-groomed whore. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Also,
what are we
you're
talking
she is
about?
always like Anna is not like an unput together person. Like she is a very well groomed person. It would seem over the course of these books and films. Yeah, it doesn't seem like an insult that doesn't apply to herself. So yeah.
Thus ends our being in Anna's head segment. Just so we're all
At least
clear.
for now. I'm sure we might have,
yeah,
have some
I'm sure
random
we
other
have
ones
some
here and
random
there.
other things. But back to a regular better in the movie things. The movie cuts everything with Christian giving Anna a ton of hickeys, like all over her body, it sounded like, so that she can't wear a bikini outside.
Yeah, and she gets really upset about it, but then he also gets her. This whole thing was very strange and handled very weird. I'm glad they just completely cut it out. Well, also because they have this insane conversation, but like they both get really upset about it. Like she's upset at first that he did it, and then he's upset that he did it, and whatever. It gets kind of convoluted. But they also have this discussion about hard limits, and she says, and I don't think that E.L. James realizes the fact that in this conversation, his hard limit that he tells her, he goes, she's like, leaving marks on my body is a hard limit. And he's like, okay, well, you going out, you showing off your body in public is a hard limit for me. And I don't think the book realizes that his hard limit is her taking her clothes off in public. And her hard limit is him leaving marks on her body. And that these are the same thing, or they're not, that one of those is his limit is her practicing her bodily autonomy. And then her limit is, again, her practicing her own bodily autonomy. And of course, we end this conversation with both of them going, well, we should both respect the limits of the other. But I was like, no, they're both limits about what she can do with her body. Yeah. He doesn't get to say that. Like, what the fuck is happening? And I don't think that the book realized that that was what happened there, because I felt like reading that conversation that at the end E.L. James was like, look, see, they talked it out, they had a conversation, and they came to a sensible adult resolution. I'm like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't, because his limit is what she can do with her body, and her limit is what she can do with her, or what he can do to her body. Those are the same, like, those are both her limits. They're not his. What is happening? It's insane. I don't. Yeah. Also, I realized that scene is just the post-vampire sex scene from Twilight.
Yeah, where she's all bruised up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of. I mean, it's
kind
an analog.
of. Yeah. Except Edward doesn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, Edward doesn't do it on purpose, and it's not like a big thing, but it is.
Yeah.
And Edward's like really upset about it, where she's like, it's fine, it's not a big deal. Like she's.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Also in this scene, when she gets mad at him for this, she throws a hairbrush at him.
Yes.
It's truly an auspicious start to their marriage.
Yeah, I was like, love it. That spousal abuse go in both directions. Let's do it.
They are equal partners.
Girl boss. throw that hairbrush at his face. Amazing.
Movie cuts. Christian telling Anna, the fuller your bladder, the more intense your orgasm.
I have to go back real quick. If you throw a thing at your spouse on your honeymoon, get a divorce that second.
Yeah, get a divorce immediately. It's not going to go up from here.
I don't care what else is going. I can't just. Regardless if you throw something at your spouse other than like fun playfully, which is not what she's doing. She angrily chucks a hairbrush at his head. And if that happens at any point, just end your relationship. It's not going to work out. And especially you're on your honeymoon. It's just mind-blowing. Like, if ever, and they talk so much in the book about how, like, oh, the happy bubble of our honeymoon, you were throwing hairbrushes at each other. Like, what? He was, like, bruising you. And so, like, what is, oh my God. So bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
So the movie cuts. They're gonna have sex, and Anna's like, "Let me go to the bathroom," and Christian's like, "No, don't go to the bathroom." And he tells her, "The fuller your bladder, the more intense your orgasm." It might be true.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it sounds like a good way to get a bladder infection again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good thing to do.
Yeah,
like a healthy
like a
thing to
full
do.
bladder. Like I could see maybe like a little bit of pee. Sure, I don't know.
I don't know. It just seems like not a great idea because I also
Yeah.
you could just have a good orgasm without needing to pee. I feel like that's
Yeah.
allowed. You can do that. I don't know. it's just very weird. The movie cuts the whole jet ski thing, which it's just a little aside on the honeymoon where she wants to go into town to get something and she wants to take the jet ski and she knows he won't want her to drive it, but she does it anyways and he gets really upset about it. And it's just another thing of her like defying him and him getting upset about it. And
Yeah.
I feel like the topless thing kind of gets that like we
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah, we
both of
don't
them.
need another example.
So it's fine. Like just skip that and move on.
The movie also cuts. She buys him a camera on their honeymoon so that he can take naked pictures of her. I wouldn't have minded had the movie included this, but I also didn't particularly care about it, and it ended up not really meaning anything in the grand scheme of the story. So
Yeah,
eh.
I had this
me.
in better in the book because I actually really liked this. I thought the thing with the camera was really cute because she does at least somewhat buy it so like he can take naked pictures, but they also end up just using it to just take pictures of each other. Like they're just taking pictures of each other while they're on their honeymoon. And I thought this would be a really fun way had they kept it in. It would have been really cute, but also it's a built-in way to do the music video montage that we get at the end, but then have it end up being photos that we saw them taking
Yeah.
throughout the film, but we didn't see the photos. And then we see them at the end during this, like, music video montage. I thought that could have been a clever way to give us the montage. I mean, we'll get to the montage. It's my favorite part of this entire film, much like it was in Twilight. But I still thought that would have been kind of a clever way to, like, do that and get a similar thing that you get with the montage at the end, but have it be, like, a more, like, in-universe thing, like, thing that makes sense. I don't know. Anyways, I liked the camera thing. I mentioned earlier about the whole dynamic of Anna being like, ooh, I don't like all this money stuff. And there's this thing that the movie cuts where, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did a voice.
That's a really good impression.
Yeah. But the movie cuts this thing where he buys her like a $30,000 platinum bracelet or something at one point. And then she goes into town when she's buying the camera and buys like a $5 little like, trinket anklet thing from like a novelty shop or whatever. And she's like, this is much more my speed or whatever. And it's just, there's so much less in the film of the like, not like other girlsing from Anna. Like we get a lot less of that. And it happens quite a bit in the books. And it's always a little like eye rolly. So.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. You still kept the $30,000 bracelet though, didn't you, Anna? I also big props to the movie for not making the reveal of Jack Hyde as the guy who's like the villain, like a surprise. Because the book tries for a little bit
Yes.
to make
For
the
far too
reveal
long.
for far too long to make the reveal of Jack being the villain like a reveal. And it's so obvious.
Yeah, who else would it be?
Who else would it be? The guy who got fired for sexually assaulting your wife like a week ago or whatever. Like again, it's not like this was years ago. This was a couple weeks ago or whatever. And I love in the film they skip because there's like a fire at Escala or at the Gray headquarters. And in the book, we hear about that fire and then somebody stealing some stuff, and they're like, we don't know who it is. I wonder who it could be. Blah blah blah. And then like 100 pages later, we see the security footage, and Anna is like, oh, that's Jack. And they're like, oh, it is Jack. And then in the film, in this one, like in the first, like on the honeymoon, they get the security footage, and Anna's like, that's Jack. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, we're not idiots. Like, obviously, it's Jack. The movie cuts a line, and I guess this is the thing in Anna's head that it could have gone up in that other montage up there. But Anna she wants to talk to Kate, she's on the honeymoon still, and she wants to talk to Kate, and she hops on her newfound toy, Skype chat. And it's so dated and hilarious. It's a good call by the movie to cut it. But it just goes in with all the other like dated technology stuff that these books do. An iPad! Wow! Yeah. Again, cuts all the weird food stuff other than the one ice cream sex scene. But when I say weird food stuff, I don't mean the sex stuff. I mean specifically Christian being weird and controlling about how much she eats and stuff like that. And also there's a scene when they get back from the honeymoon where Christian picks her up to carry her back into the apartment. He's like, "You've gained weight." And she's like, "What?" And she gets all in her own head about it, and it becomes like a thing kind of for a little bit.
Well, yeah, there are more mentions. It's not as bad as it is in book 2.
No.
But there are definitely more mentions in this one of Anna thinking about how she likes being super thin and doesn't like the 1 pound that she gained on the honeymoon. Whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And then as they arrive back from their honeymoon, now keep in mind they were in Europe on a whirlwind European tour. They have flown back at least 10 hours on a plane, multiple whatever. They finally arrive back at the hotel. They say close to 20 hours of nonstop travel. I think she says 18 or something like that in the book.
Yeah, so they were flying back from Europe to Seattle.
Yeah.
So they either had to go all the way across the United States or all the way across Asia.
Right. Either
one
way.
of the two.
One of the two. They made a very long trip from like France back to Seattle. 18, 20 hours of nonstop intercontinental travel. And as soon as they get back, they have sex. And I was like, there's just
no way.
Human in the
you
universe.
Would be dead.
No human in the universe, the horniest person in the universe, gets home from 20 hours of intercontinental travel. Now, to be fair, they're not going through public airports and like they're,
they're like chilling on a private jet.
Right. So it's a little bit different, but still.
You would still be jet lagged.
Yes, you'd be jet lagged, you'd be tired, you'd be cramped from sitting in a plane for 20 hours or whatever. Nobody is like, all right, let's go. I'm sorry. This is not happening. And I'm glad the movie cut that.
There's a little moment when Anna gets back to work and she's got her new security guy, Sawyer, with her. And her assistant is like, he's cute.
Yes.
Which I thought was kind of funny. It's kind of a cute
It's like
moment.
a recurring thing, too, where she keeps like, and they seem to like kind of start up a little
thing
point,
in the background.
He gives her something or something.
Again, also rooting for them more than, than Christian. Also, while I'm on the subject, being able to see Taylor and Sawyer in the film was such a blessing because I got them confused consistently throughout the book.
It helped so much. Absolutely. The movie cuts a little side mention of a new character who gets a full name, Noah Logan.
Yeah.
Introduced in an elevator as they're riding up.
We chit-chat with him.
They're like, Noah, he's our new neighbor. Completely pointless character. He literally is... The only reason he matters is that we find out later that he inadvertently let Jack into the apartment as like a maintenance person or something. Like Jack was basically doing some work for him or something. And so he was using this neighbor to get into the building.
Right.
But he could have, why did we need to meet this character?
We didn't need to meet him. We didn't need to. And there's so many other characters that we could have met in his place that would, or like spent more time with in this place that would have been important. I don't know, like several at the end of this story that become important. It's just so weird. And I felt like Erica was trying to do a red herring, but didn't like do it well.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, maybe this is...
Yeah, because he's never mentioned again.
Yeah.
He's literally never mentioned again except for offhandedly later when they realize how Jack got into the apartment.
They meet him and then they mention one other time.
Yeah.
When they're like, we think he got in because of this guy.
Yeah, but there's never like any suspicion of like, well, I wonder, like, Anna never has a thought to herself like, maybe our new neighbor, like, there's nothing. Like, it's just, it's so silly.
Okay. Back to the first butt plug scene in the book. Maybe I'm misreading this. I felt like she was kind of super into kink kind of out of nowhere. in this scene. Like, not nowhere. Like, I don't feel like we jumped from A to Z, but I kind of felt like maybe we jumped from M to Z in this scene.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't get much of that from it, but I mean,
I don't know.
It's just yeah.
I just these books are not particularly good at like character development.
No,
I think there's an attempt. There's an attempt. I will grant you that, Erica. There is an attempt, but it's just not very good. So a lot of times, you know, something like this, where she spent 2 books being like, ooh, I don't know if I can do the kink. And then all of a sudden in book 3, she's like, yeah, tie me up, put a butt plug in me. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Because there isn't like a moment where she necessarily realized. Yeah, I don't disagree. I get what you're saying. It didn't come across super out of nowhere to me. I guess you're saying not super. It's not A to Z, M to Z. Yeah, I guess I get what you're saying.
It feels like not a huge jump, but a jump nonetheless.
Fair enough.
There's a scene that the movie cuts where they watch TV and like make out in front of the TV. They're watching like X-Files or something.
They specifically make a point. Anna's like, "Can we sit in front of the TV and make out?"
Yeah, she's like, she's
Can
into
we
this.
do a normal relationship thing for once in our lives? I don't know.
Yeah. But I have a couple notes here. First off, Christian's like, well, I don't really watch TV. I think it's a waste of time. And I was like, ugh, of course you do. Of course you do.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
Ugh. But then they have this whole conversation while they're dry humping on the couch about Anna's romantic history. And I was like, I thought Anna didn't have a romantic history.
She
like
never had
I
sex.
thought that was
it did. You get the vibe that she like
they
literally
make it sound in the first book that she makes it sound like Anna has never done anything,
like borderline, like short of like maybe going on a date or something, but like never like
yeah. But in this scene we discuss her romantic history and Christian's like, oh well, this boy that you made out with, did he get to first base? Or did he get to second base?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm glad we finally got a baseball scene in this series. We went too long without getting our baseball scene equivalent. Here it is. Thank you, Erica.
That's true. You know, now that I think about it, the sex scenes with the overwrought scores are really the baseball scenes of this series.
Yes.
They really are. Like the giant needle drop sex scenes in this movie are really the black hole, or not what you would call it, supermassive black hole scenes from Twilight. Yeah. Absolutely. Also, the movie obviously cuts that whole scene, but one of the worst lines in the series so far, in my opinion, is after that discussion, they then start canoodling more and have sex. And as I cannot...
Just read it.
I'm just going to read it.
Just read it.
Home run, he whispers, and swiftly he fills me. The worst. The worst. If I can... I can't even fathom... If a person said that to you, to another person before entering them sexually, you should be allowed to murder that person with a baseball bat, I think. I'm sorry. It's the worst. It's so bad.
It's just another one of those things, like, he could only date a woman like Anna.
Yes.
Because anyone else would fucking laugh at him. I would laugh.
Yeah.
I would laugh so hard, and he would get so butthurt.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I think in the movie, this scene almost would work because their dynamic is different enough where it would come across playful and funny, and they would both laugh about it. Whereas in the book, this scene doesn't work because if she laughed, he'd be like, "What the fuck?" Oh, like he would get all bent out of shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Because in the book, it feels like he's saying that 100% dead seriously. like
He's very sincere.
yeah, at least to some extent. And it's not to say the book version doesn't have any sense of humor. He does, but like that scene, it doesn't read to me like this is a playful joke between the two of them where they're kind of teasing each other necessarily. It just feels like it's, and also just comboing it with he whispers and swiftly he fills me is terrible. It's terrible.
No.
It's awful.
The movie gives us a more tempering of Christian's insane psychopath temper when he storms into Anna's office at work to fight about her not changing her name. Great scene.
It's incredible. In both of them, this is complete, like you said, psycho stuff. He storms in and he's like, I sent you an email, the email below, and it bounced back because you haven't changed your name. It is 9:30 a.m. the morning you're back at work after 3 weeks of being away on a honeymoon.
Yeah.
And he is losing his mind over her not changing her email within an hour of being at work.
Yeah. And also, like, buddy, I have bad news for you about how long it takes to legally change your name.
Well, yeah.
Like, I've got bad news for you, bro.
Yeah, and even like changing a work email would take like, oh, I gotta read out my email, I gotta change. Like it would. It's not like a done and thing. Even if she wanted to do it, even if you knew she wanted to do
like,
it,
she could have. Like she didn't, and it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But like she could have easily already asked IT to do it, and they just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just nuts. But the movie does nail one thing is that when he storms in there about this, she says to him, "You were rudely interrupting my workday to fight about my name." And that line comes from the book. And it was so funny because I was like, hey, this book has a little bit of movie Anna in it.
Yeah.
And it became clear over the course of reading this book that movie Anna, and I think it was a smart decision, is that they took Anna from book 3, at least the better parts of Anna from book 3, and just made that her character the whole time.
Yeah.
And her arc isn't becoming a competent, like, confident person who's able to hold her own. It's more about the dynamic of their relationship and the push and pull. And she's already a fully formed, like, competent, confident adult human person going into the relationship. Whereas in the book, the arc is her going from, like, this meek little, fae to, like, maybe that's not the right word, but into, like, an actual adult human person. And I thought it was just very funny because I was like, so many times in this book, I don't want to say so many, but a handful of times in this book, I was like, that feels like something movie Anna would say.
Yes. Yeah.
And here she is saying it in this book.
Yeah. Christian in the book has a couple lines while they're having this fight about her changing her name. He tells her that some of his assets need rebranding. God, if you ever referred to me as an asset.
If I ever did it, it would only be in text and I would capitalize ASS.
That would be acceptable. He also has a line about keeping wives in their place in this scene. He's batting 1,000.
Batting 1,000
in this scene.
For the 50s misogyny. Yeah. Also, the movie drops this whole conversation at the end of the scene in the book that they have, where the book kind of implies that she did actually kind of get the editor job because of Christian. At least that's how I read it.
Yeah, he basically tells her without telling her.
Because he says in this scene, he's like, well, and she's like, you didn't give me the job, did you? And he's like, no, but I bought the company, and during the transition process, they needed somebody to after Jack left, after we got rid of Jack, they needed somebody to babysit the position, so they just put you in, and then it kind of like subtly insinuates that she only got put into it because he bought the business. Not necessarily that he put her in that position or like told them to or asked them to or anything, but that him buying the business is the reason she was able to like finagle into that position, kind of. Which is kind of true, I guess.
Probably true.
But it's still shitty and weird, and the movie just avoids that.
Anyway, it's shitty of him to tell her that.
Yes.
Especially on the heels of this fight.
Yeah.
The movie also cuts where he's like, I'm going to give you this company.
Yeah. And rename it Gray Publishing.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you do that? And that whole thing, again, like, she thinks about it occasionally throughout the book, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and it doesn't serve the plot, and it doesn't even seem to happen. Her character arc. I think they mention
at the end
in the epilogue, there's a mention of Gray Publishing.
Yeah, so it did.
So it does happen. Yeah. Or maybe he just decides to change the name.
Maybe she doesn't take over. But yeah, because she's basically, and I thought that whole thing was really stupid.
Yeah, it's
like,
really dumb.
He's like, you're going to take over and you're going to run the company. And she's like, I don't want to run a company. I don't know how to run a company. And his response is, you're very well read, though. And I'm like, right, because being an editor and...
So am I, but I shouldn't be running a publishing company.
And that's basically what she says. And I'm like, this whole thing is so stupid. And then she basically turns it down. And he does ask her at the end, the last thing we hear about it before the epilogue is him being like, oh, consider it. At least, consider it. And then it seems like potentially it does happen at the epilogue. We don't know for sure. But I do love this little aside where during this conversation, or it might be later in the book where they're having a conversation about it again, she's like reiterating the fact that she's like, I don't know how to run a company. I like books. I like to read, and I'm an editor. Like, I don't know how to I wouldn't know how to run a company. Yeah. And he literally gives the game away, and he's like, no, it's fucking all made up. He goes, you're a CEO. You do what you do best, and you just hire people to do the rest. You don't really have to do anything. Like, you the CEO, you just fucking hire people that run the company, and you do whatever you want to do. And I was like, this is... Yeah, you know what? Like, if this was an intentional critique of the corporate structure of America, this would be great. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
One other thing that I love, kind of related to all of this, when she gets back to work, some of her coworkers are kind of like cold to her, like standoffish. Yeah. And she's like thinking to herself, are they treating me differently? I can't imagine why they would be treating me differently. I just got back. And I'm like, girl, come on. Come on. You're fucking the CEO. And then you magically got the top job despite having less than a year of experience. I would hate your guts too. Less than a year of experience.
Weeks of experience.
Yes. Like,
weeks of experience.
Like, come on. Yeah. Are you that stupid?
Yeah. It is funny, though, because it ends up being, which I actually called this, but it ends up the whole thing where she's like, why are they acting weird? It's Elizabeth, and it's because she's part of the plot. We'll get to it, but yeah.
So following this fight about her name, the movie cuts this. Christian's like they're talking about it, and he's like, well, you know I have issues. And this is something he does after like every fight they have. He's like, well, you know I have issues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my brother in Christ. You can't just say that every time you do something depraved. It's not a get out of jail free card. It's a red flag.
Yes. Movie cuts a line where Christian tells Anna that she's precious to him like a child, which is disgusting. Also, what do you call him over here? Like, what are you doing? It's weird.
The movie also cuts after they're talking about him wanting to give her the company, blah blah blah, and she's being like very open and honest with him about how she's feeling. Yeah. And she's like, I don't want to feel like you're controlling my entire future. Yeah. I don't want to end up feeling railroaded by you.
Right.
Which is a very reasonable thing to feel and say.
Yeah.
And he hears that and he's like, what? You feel railroaded by me? And I was like, that is not what she said. That's not what she said. She said, I don't want to feel that way.
Right.
Not that she does feel that way. And he's the most infuriating type of man. Because this is exactly what manipulative people do. I, like many of us, have had the mispleasure of interacting with manipulative people throughout my life. Also had the mispleasure of having to live with a sociopath level manipulative person for most of my childhood. And this is what they do. They maliciously misconstrue something that you've said, and then they turn it back around and they make the entire conversation about the fact that you've hurt their feelings, that you've said, i.e. done, something unacceptable. Because note that in this scene, they do not continue talking about Anna's feelings after this.
Yeah.
He switches that conversation around. They start focusing on his feelings until the conversation changes entirely.
Yeah. The other thing that's insane about that is that even if he hadn't done that, even if she had said, I don't like because he does railroad. Like,
yes, even if she had said, I feel railroad, she would be well within her rights to say that.
That would be accurate of his behavior. Like, it's not even close. Yeah, I
liked that we met Gia in the movie, like closer to the start. Like they smashed some scenes together, I think, with Gia.
They don't even smash scenes together. What they do is they get rid of the movie entirely cuts the brunch scene at Christian's parents' house.
Yes.
And turns that into them going to see their new house and meeting the architect, because then we have the car chase right after that.
Right.
And in the book, the car chase is when they're coming home from his parents' house.
Right.
So that's kind of what we do. I think Gia's only in that one scene in the book as well. I mean, other than Aspen.
I thought there was another scene with her first. But maybe that's what I'm thinking
of. She's not. I think she's only in that one scene.
Here was the thing that drove me nuts in the book. That made me prefer the way that the movie did it. Far along before we meet Gia, Anna is consumed by hatred for her. And I was like, why? I don't understand why she's so hung up on this architect lady. I have not met her. I don't know her. I don't care about her. But there is so much animosity for a character we have not met.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah. And so because we're in her head, that's what it is. It's we hear, like, I think it's like they're talking about meeting with her later, and we get to hear Anna be like, oh, I can't stand her because she's hitting on my, like, we get her, all of her angst about it and how much she hates her or whatever. And then we get the scene where they actually meet her. Whereas in the film, we don't get any of the setup. We just go and meet her and then have that scene. But yeah. I'll just overall, this film benefits a lot from just editing down the beginning because it needed so much editing. The Gia Mateo scene in the book happens in chapter 8, which there's like 25 chapters in this, so that's like a third of the way through the book. We get that scene. It happens in like the first 10 minutes of the film or 15 minutes. It's the first thing they do basically when they get back.
Yeah,
which I guess it is the first thing they do when they get back from the honeymoon in the book as well, but there's just so much more of that first part in the book. Like the film condenses the honeymoon and the wedding and everything down into like 10 minutes, whereas in the book it's like 100 pages or whatever. And so it just flows a lot better. And then also at the end, I thought this was a good way to combine, because as I mentioned, they combine the car chase happens right after the meeting with Gia. As they're leaving, when they were going to that scene, going to the house, Anna mentions wanting to drive the car or something. And then as they're leaving, Christian says to her, hey, if you can handle her, then you can handle this, because he realized that she said something to her or whatever, and basically like kind of called out Gia. And he's like, if you can handle her, you can handle this. And he tosses her the keys to the car. And I thought that was like a clever way to like work that all together, and kind of a clever editing way to make that all happen.
Then we get the car chase scene, which I thought was nominally more exciting in the film.
I disagree. I thought it was so boring.
I mean, seeing it, I think, is better than reading it.
Fair enough, but only marginally, because this is one of the most poorly shot and executed chase scenes I've ever seen. But I get what you're saying.
I don't watch a ton of movies with car chase scenes in them, so fair enough. I don't know if it makes sense that Anna is suddenly a member of the Fast and Furious family, but whatever.
Yeah.
The car chase scene in Midnight Sun was better than either iteration from this.
It cracks me up. Multiple things in this cracked me up to the point where I thought that maybe E.L. James didn't understand miles per hour.
Yes.
Because we get this moment at the beginning of it where Anna's driving and they got to get away from this car, and she's like, she puts the pedal to the metal and accelerates, and then she looks down at the speedometer and she's doing 75 miles an hour. And I was like, does she not know that 75 miles an hour, and they're on the highway, they're not like on like a city street or something. Like if they were driving in the middle of Seattle, like 75 miles an hour would be insane. But like they're on a highway. And he's like 75 miles an hour. And I'm like, that's normal highway
pretty
speed.
Normal. Like I do like 80 on the highway on a normal day.
And then later Anna's like, I then like she keeps accelerating and eventually gets up to 85 miles an hour, and she's like, I don't think I've ever gone this fast in a car. And I'm like, what? 85. Now, to be fair, she does reference that she always drove that old Beetle, which the old beat up VW, which probably had a top speed of like 60 miles an hour or something. So sure, but even still, it's just very funny because it's not. I think eventually at some point she does get up to like 100 or something, which is, you're going pretty quick at that point. But it's just like she's the way it's talked about when she's doing 75 miles an hour. It's just like, ma'am, have you ever driven on the high? And it's maybe E.L. James like lives in the city in like London or something and doesn't drive a car and doesn't know that 75 miles an hour is not that fast.
I feel like all of this is pretty easy to Google.
Or you should have editors who would be like, hey, 75 miles an hour is like in the US.
This feels like a little silly.
Normal highway speed, so like maybe bump that up 20 miles an hour or something. Like that's not as fast and furious as you think it is. I don't think so. But also there's this line in the film that cracked me up, which is not in the book, where she's speeding down the highway, and at one point she gets into some traffic. And she is riding, and we don't know how fast she's going at this point, but she is riding at least probably 60 or 70 miles an hour. She is riding the car in front of her's bumper. She is inches away.
She's practically inside the other car.
Inches away from the car in front of her's bumper, doing 60, 70 miles an hour, something like that. And she's like swerving back and forth and there's like cars on either side, so she can't pass. And Christian says, flash your headlights. And she's like, that's a dick move. And I'm like, a dick? You're tailgating them doing 70 miles an hour from like 3 inches away. What is...
It's all dickery at this point. Yeah.
But also, what is flashing her headlights going to do? Where's that car going to go?
Yeah.
You can't pass because there are cars on either side. So you flash your headlights at them. What are they going to... Whatever. She does flash her headlights and somehow the car gets out of the way and she's able to pass them. But it's just... It was so funny to me.
That does... A lot of things that other drivers do make me mad. I have a little bit of road rage. It's fine. But somebody tailed me all the way down the road coming home. There's somebody going 30 miles an hour in front of me. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do about it, bro. I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, and that's the thing. Flashing your headlights is not a dick move, even remotely, compared to tailgating somebody.
Yeah.
That is, like, flashing your headlights, sure, it might, like, some people might find it a little obnoxious or whatever, but it's not... Like, compared to riding their ass at 70 miles an hour, flash your headlights all day. Like, I don't care. I would... you're not going to kill somebody by flashing your headlights at them. You might kill them by tailgating them from 3 inches away. It's insane. There's a little detail in the in the book. We've talked about this before, how they always changed in the first book, that in their emails back and forth, they always... constantly changed every subject.
Sociopath.
Which is just insane. Because it should just always read whatever the first email was, but it doesn't. They change the subject line every time.
Never in my life changed a subject line to reply to somebody.
And in this book, unless it started earlier and I just never noticed, but in this book, they graduate to not only changing every subject line, but also changing their signatures to add like sexy, flirty adjectives to their names, and it's the worst. It's the worst.
It's so awful. She at one point changes her signature to moist editor. And look, I'm not even a person who's like particularly bothered by the word moist, but this bothered me.
It's not great. Not great. The movie cuts The Anna's confusion about how he's going to get to New York, and she asks him if he's going to fly there in his helicopter.
Oh my god!
In Charlie Tango from Seattle.
This fucking scene. She genuinely, earnestly thinks that he's going to fly his helicopter across the continental United States. Ma'am.
And again, Anna is not, she shouldn't be a stupid character.
She shouldn't be. And the book tells us that she's not, but then it shows us that she is.
All the time, yes. Yeah. Which I did double check this, because I was like, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty positive. The range of most helicopters is like less than 500 miles. It's like a couple hundred miles at max usually, depending on the type of helicopter or whatever. And yeah, the distance from Seattle to New York is like 3,000 miles or something like that.
Even if you could fly a helicopter that far, why would you want to?
Why would you want to? Yeah, no. So,
especially when you have a private jet.
Yes. Yeah, doesn't make any sense. A little detail that the movie does that I liked is we actually see Anna being successful at her job as editor. I think Boyce Fox gets mentioned in the book from my memory, but he shows up in this film and they have a little brief conversation, and then we find out that he has a bunch of pre-sales. One of the higher ups comes in and is like, good job with the Boyce book. It's got 200,000 pre-sales. You were right about him having a built-in audience or whatever, because the whole thing in the last one is where she suggested getting authors
we should look into those online authors.
Look into those online authors. They seem awesome and smart and beautiful and talented. Yeah. But also it cracked me up because the guy who plays Boyce Fox, I was like, I recognize this dude from somewhere. And I looked it up. He's the dude who plays Superman in all of the CW spin-off shows.
Yeah.
He was in, because where I recognized him from, we watched like the first season or two of Supergirl.
Yeah.
And he shows up in that. But I think he has his own spin-off now where it's like Lois and Superman or something. But he's that guy.
There was also a little moment with him in the movie that I thought was funny when Christian comes in to fight about her changing her name. He's in the office with her, and he's like, Christian's like, I need to talk to my wife, and Anna's like, no, don't leave, we're not done. And he's like, I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna leave. This seems awful. Yeah. Anna doesn't have a weird hatred of Prescott for literally no reason.
This made no sense.
It makes sense if you think that maybe E.L. James has some weird biases that she has not examined. Yes.
Narratively, it made no sense.
Because in the book, Prescott is the new member of the security team. I think she's the only new member, because Sawyer was in the last book, mentioned at least. But Prescott is a black woman who has joined the security team, and Anna immediately does not like her for really no reason other than she's kind of cold and reserved, which so are the other two. The other guys, they're security guards. Like that's kind of their whole thing. Also in the book, when she wants to go get drinks with Kate, it's Prescott who's like, hey, Christian said we can't go out for drinks or whatever. And Anna says to her, Christian isn't here right now. I am. We're going to get drinks. And in the film, they'd make that a conversation between Anna and Sawyer, I think. Yeah. Which is a little detail. But there's a moment later where Anna thinks to herself, Prescott has been quiet today. I think I prefer her that way. And like normally, this would be like whatever, but I have to reinforce here that Prescott is literally the singular black character in this entire book at this. Like the only other black character mentioned is his Roz, who's not in this book at all. Right. She's in the film like once or twice. Yeah. But she's not in this book at all. And then that one aide or whatever who's mentioned in the very first book. Yeah,
the handsome black man.
The handsome black guy who works in Christian's office in the first book. The only 3 black characters mentioned, I think, the entire series. And this one is the only one in this book. And she's like, I like it when you don't talk. It's very like, well, okay, all right.
I do think that we're seeing also like an intersection of race and gender as well, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
Because like you mentioned, Anna dislikes Prescott for reasons that also apply to the male security guards. Like,
yeah, they're cold and stoic. Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, sure, Taylor like gives her a smile and a nod every now and then, but like, you haven't given Prescott enough time to even It like literally the first time she shows up, Anna's like, I don't like her. It's like,
Okay. All right.
All right. And yeah, I like that the movie does not have that be an element because it feels real weird.
The movie really ups the ante on Jack being in the apartment when she gets back from drinks.
Yeah.
We actually get to see them take him down, whereas in the book, it literally happens off screen.
Yes.
Like she walks into the apartment and he's already captured.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a really smart decision. Like she walks in and nothing's awry, but then the lights don't turn on.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, that's weird.
That's kind of weird. And then he grabs her and is like going to take her. It all just makes way more sense. It's way more dramatic. It's more interesting.
It's a very welcome action beat.
Yeah. It's just,
that point
I don't
in the
know
film.
why you wouldn't have had it play out that way in the book. I don't.
I wonder if she was not comfortable with her ability to write a scene like that.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe she didn't even want to try to write it. I don't know. But it was weird. Like, I turned the page and I was like, oh, they just caught him.
Yeah.
Just anticlimactic.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah, much better in the film.
And then Christian comes back and he's furious. Movie cuts. His line, I want to punish you. Really beat the shit out of you.
Yes.
Very charming stuff.
Oh God. And the way it's portrayed and the way it reads in the book when he comes back, she has gone to bed and then she wakes up and he is sitting in a chair drinking whiskey and watching her.
Yes.
And it reads like a horror film.
Yeah.
Like he's going to murder her. And
he's gonna murder her and make a suit out of her skin or something. Like,
and like she wakes up and like sees him there and it's like silent and then she says something and he's like, oh, I'm way beyond mad. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, again, the film turns that into like a much more normal interaction. He doesn't feel like a serial killer necessarily. I got to talk about this because this is one of the worst things in this book. There's a scene where they have dinner. Oh, she's very hungry. It's sometime after the whole fallout after the Jack thing. But she's very hungry, and he needs to feed her. So he blindfolds her. And he walks her into the kitchen and then he warms up a bunch of food and then he starts feeding her blindfolded. And like, okay, I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever. Then he gets some wine and he does the thing he has done in previous books where he like kisses it into her mouth, which
he baby birds her.
Well, I mean, sure. Wine is one thing. When I read that, and then he was preparing food, I was like, so help me God, if he baby birds food into her mouth, I will just stop reading this book. I don't care. Luckily, he does not. He does not, like, he just feeds her with, like, a fork. Again, still whatever. But she does say this, and I hate it so much. He feeds me, occasionally kissing a morsel of food from my mouth.
Nope.
Which is disgusting.
Nope.
And I hate it so much. I hate it. And then they go immediately from eating an entire meal of like, it's like goat. They say it's like
from
Greek,
the delicatessen. It's like hummus and
like she says like spicy goat or lamb or something. Like it's like a heavy meal and they're drinking wine and they go immediately from eating a big meal into the playroom to have sex.
No.
And I was like, guys, come on. What are we? I know it's a fantasy, but like
things like that make me question how much the author understands about sex.
Yeah. And in particular, like vigorous sex.
Yes.
Like it's just
Speaking of vigorous sex, cannot make this up. In this book, Christian comes on page 260. Orgasms. Climaxes. Page 260. And then on page 261 has a full erection again and is ready to go.
Yeah.
I cannot make this up.
Yeah. And it's so funny because that's been a complaint that I've mentioned numerous times over the course of this series, that he will climax and within seconds be ready to go again. But then it's like it's like somebody said that to her at some point towards the end of this, because there's a thing later in this book where Anna, after they have sex, they just finished having sex in a scene later, Anna says, "I think we should go again." And Christian responds by saying, "Christ, Anna, give a man a chance to like recuperate or whatever." It's like, that has never been a problem.
Why would any of us think you need a chance to recuperate?
So many times you have climaxed twice in a span of 5 minutes. What are you talking about? What, now you need time? What is going on? Also, I think it's this scene, the movie cuts a line where he kisses her and then he says to her, "Your lips are always so soft when you've been crying," which is horrifying.
No.
That's a thing a serial killer says to the woman he has tied up in his basement.
Yes.
That is what that is.
Yes.
Your lips are always so soft after you've been crying. Like, that's what crazy. One of the things that I hated most about this book, and all of them really, and we've mentioned it before, but it's so exhausting, is just the constant recurring conversations, and in particular, the constant reoccurring conversations and need for specifically Christian, but both of them to some extent, to be reassured about the commitment and love in their relationship. It's just, it happens all the time where like Christian is like, "I want you to need," we're in book 3, they're married at this point, and Christian's like, "I want you to need me," and she's like, "I do," and he's like, "I missed you so much while you were gone," and she's like, or no, that's what it is. I don't even remember who says what here, but I want you to need me. I do. I missed you so much while you were gone. You did? Question? You've had this conversation 1,000 times at this point. She missed you, man. The constant need to be reassured that the person you are in a relationship with actually loves you triggered the shit out of me. It was my least favorite thing. Like, and I'm not even using that. I'm using that like legitimately. Like I got like a very slight fight or flight response from those conversations where, again, we have established so many times how deeply and amazingly they love each other, and then one of them goes, "Wait, you love me? Are you sure? Oh my God, are you sure you love me?" And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this, guys. I can't do this. I'm checking out. And the film luckily removes that stuff like entirely, basically. So the film also cuts this line he has to her where she stumbles in on him playing sad piano at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Like you do.
And she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "A deranged person showed up to kidnap my wife. My wife disobeyed me, and my wife safe worded. I don't think I'm okay," or whatever. And it's like, sir, 2 of those 3 things are not like the other. One of those is a pretty good reason to not be able to sleep and be up at 3 a.m. playing sad, mopey piano. 2 of those things are not. My wife disobeyed me and my wife's safe. Okay. All right, dude. Great.
So then the whole gang goes off to Aspen. Christian arranges this trip, takes Anna, and then surprise, everybody else is also coming. And I had a journey on this scene in the movie, because I was like, wait, why is Jose there? Because he's not in the book.
No.
And him and Christian like famously don't really like each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, is Jose just there being like a 7th wheel?
Yeah.
Poor guy. But then I talked to you about it, and you reminded me that the movies wrote out Ethan. Yeah. So I guess Mia is just with Jose now.
Yes. Ethan, or Jose replaces Ethan, basically.
And I initially had put this under the movie Nailed It, until I realized that Jose was there because I really like the movie's decision to just quietly make Jose a part of the group and never have it be an issue with Christian.
I agree. It also just makes sense. Good choice. You introduce him as a character that matters, and he even in the film he doesn't really, he just gets written out and like isn't important. But you introduce him as like one of her best friends, and you think he's going to be kind of an interesting, important character, and he's just not in the book. He's like not in the book.
Yeah,
This one like at all, basically, except for like a couple scenes here and there. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to replace him or replace Ethan with him, because Ethan is just Kate's brother, who we know literally nothing about other than he's Kate's brother. Like, and he just shows up and Mia wants to date him or whatever. But yeah, replace him with Jose. Cool. Fine. Makes a lot of sense. I also like on this Aspen trip that they have a scene which is not in the book, where they like go and have like a hike together without Christian. And we get a little bit of time for Elliot and Anna to like talk about Christian and have some kind of like bonding between them and discussion of Christian as a I just thought it like made sense and was good.
Yeah. She also in the movie has a nightmare about Jack, which I thought was pretty creepy.
Yes.
Movie also cuts the reference that they're like, oh, the boys are going fishing and all the girls, we can go shopping. And I was like, oh, yes, the two genders, fishing and shopping.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The movie cuts some dialogue that I had to look up, because did you know this?
No.
Okay. Because I thought I was losing my mind. I had to Google it, and I think this is one of those E.L. James's British things,
yes.
I think. Because they have a conversation in Aspen. They're getting ready. They're going to go to the club that night. And as they're discussing their plans to go to the club, one of them says, we should throw some shapes this evening. I think Mia says it. And I was like, literally, what the fuck does that mean? Like, literally, what the fuck does throw shapes mean? I Googled it, and I believe throw shapes is Irish slang for dancing. I have literally never heard this.
Never heard it in my life.
If you're I would love to know if you're an American listener specifically, which is most of our listeners, if you have ever heard the phrase throwing shapes outside of the context of watching like an Irish or British TV show or something, you know what I mean? Like if you were watching like Dairy Girls or something and they said that, I would be like, okay, but like I've never heard that in American fiction. I thought that was very strange.
Yeah, and that's another thing that like an editor should have been like, hey, it doesn't really make sense for Americans to say that. It's not American
And that's
slang.
what made me question. I was like, surely, again, I know these are poorly edited, but surely. And that's a thing that an editor could at least be like, you'd think she wouldn't be super like weird about it if an editor was like, hey, throwing shapes isn't really a thing Americans say or would know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, let's replace that with, we should go dancing. Like, and she'd be like, okay, fine. Because it's not like it's like subverting the, like.
I mean, I agree that should be a reasonable request.
It's just so weird.
But I just don't know that Erica would consider it a reasonable edit.
Yeah. No, you're not right. You're not wrong. The club dress scene. So she buys a very short and revealing dress to wear to the club while they're out shopping, and then she's getting dressed in the bedroom, and Christian walks in, and this scene happens in both the film and the book. But I thought it was just better overall in the film because in the book, he's more like protective and weird and gross about the fact that she's going to be showing off some skin.
Yeah.
And in the film, he's way more playful. Most of it's the same. Like the whole thing where he's like, this part's so close to this part, and he's like touching her or whatever, and which is fine, whatever. But it all, again, in the film, it comes across way more playful and teasy and fun. And like they're both kind of having fun. And the only thing he says, it keeps the comment where he says like, don't bend over or whatever. But again, it's delivered in the film in like a playful way, like, and not like a don't bend over, you whore. Like, which again is how it feels reading the book. So, but yeah, that I was glad that they made this subtle change to that scene.
Movie cuts Anna's weird inner monologue about like regretting reading instead of going out. This reads, I close my eyes. Why did I spend the first 20 years of my life not doing this? I chose reading over dancing. Jane Austen didn't have great music to move to, and Thomas Hardy. Geez, he'd have felt guilty as sin that he wasn't dancing with his first wife. I giggled at the thought. What?
It's so weird. It's so weird. This is the thing, and I don't know. I'm just purely speculating. There are sections of these books throughout that felt like E.L. James wrote them while she was a little more in the sauce than other sections. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
there are sections
Yeah.
in 50 Shades Darker, the pool scene, to me, that whole chapter or whatever, that whole section where they play billiards together, felt like maybe E.L. James, it was a little late at night and she had a couple more glasses of wine than normal when she was writing this. And that is another one of those moments where it's just like, what? Okay, that's just weird. The movie removes a completely pointless mention of Ethan trying to teach Anna to ride dirt bikes last summer. And this two things. One, I couldn't even figure out. I wasn't sure if that was before she met Christian. And then surely it would have to be, right?
She's only known Christian for like 6 months
That's
max.
wild. That's wild. It must be, yeah. But then also, is that like a cheeky Twilight reference?
It's gotta be a cheeky Twilight reference, yeah. I mean, it would be Jose if it was a correct
if it was
tyrant,
direct, but still.
reference, but
I don't know.
it's gotta be a reference to the motorcycle from New Moon.
You would think.
I would think,
you would think.
Movie also cuts Anna slapping the guy in the club who like comes up behind her and tries to gets handsy with her.
She initially thinks it's Christian.
Yeah.
And then realizes it's some random dude.
Right, because his hands are too hairy.
Yeah, specifically his hands are too hairy, which is like, okay. All right.
I wouldn't have cared if they had included this, but since I don't care, I'm just as fine leaving it out.
Yes.
It's less to endure.
Yeah. I'm also glad that they cut after that Christian because they cut that. Christian comes over in the book and sucker punches the guy.
Yeah.
And knocks him out. And I was like, literally, Christian could have murdered this man.
Yeah.
Sucker punching a person that is not expecting it is a great way to kill somebody, especially if you're like a fit person who knows how to fight, which Christian, according to these books, and like he used to fight a lot when he was a kid. We see him working out all the time. He's very like muscular and stuff. I like legitimately, it's not a small percentage chance that he could have killed this guy by punching him after Anna had already handled the situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, am I truly expected to believe that her hand would still be red the following morning after she slapped one guy once?
I don't.
Like the next morning, she's like, "Oh, my hand is still red and sore," and I'm like, "No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No." It's like, yeah, because think about how hard you can high five somebody. You can high five like super hard and your hand will sting. Like, oh my God, that stinks. It is not red the next day. Like, ever. Like, this is not. Also, I love in this scene, though, the thing, my favorite part of this that they do cut, because again, the whole scene's gone, is after Christian almost murders a man, they just continue dancing the night away. It's so funny. They just start dancing and it's like, what? Like nothing happened. All right. Good job.
Then after they get home from this night out, the audacity of this book. She's wearing like all of this heavy black eyeshadow and liner. Like they talk about it like it's super heavy around her eyes. And she's like, oh, I'm not used to wearing this much makeup.
Yeah, because she says she looks like Barbie mixed with some sort of like grunge or reference.
I don't remember. And then they get back and he takes off her makeup for her with a few swipes of a cotton ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a magic cotton ball. Maybe he's got billionaire cotton balls.
It would have to be a magic billionaire cotton ball.
Yeah. I enjoyed in this film, we get like after they get back from Aspen, they start doing some sex stuff and we get like a montage of like sexy times and then Anna sitting in her office, like thinking about it and like reminiscing, and it kind of cuts back and forth. And this is kind of covers in the book, we get a similar thing where they're like, it's an email exchange where they're like flirtily emailing about the stuff they did in bed last night or whatever for like a week. It like goes on for like the course of a week. And this is kind of like that. But I just thought that the film did it. It's just more interesting, and I thought it worked pretty well and did a good job of showing Anna kind of like realizing how much she likes this stuff or whatever. I don't know. I thought it was handled pretty well. Also, during one of the butt plug scenes, and I think it's the first one. I think I just have this note in the wrong spot, but I think it's the first, like the one where we actually see, because again, at this point, it's just like an email exchange. We don't actually get like a written out sex scene. But she thinks to herself during the butt plug scene, Christian always puts songs on repeat in here. And I was like, sounds awful.
Sounds really terrible.
Why would you put a single song on repeat? And then I was like, oh, wait, is Christian that Reddit guy? Is it the song? Which I believe Shelby made the same joke on Twitter the other day or something.
Yeah, I think so.
But it just is, he always puts songs on repeat in here. It's like, why? That's so weird.
So terrible.
I guess it could be okay-ish if it is, because he often plays like classical music, and if it's like a 20-minute movement that you repeat,
Sure.
like that would be a little different. But even still, just play a different like whatever.
Yeah. Just make a playlist, dude.
Yeah. Also, after the butt plug scene, Christian says, "You said you wanted it rough," and I will say that either one, Christian is getting better at accessing Anna's wants/needs,
Which I'm not sure that the rest
which I
of the
don't
story
think the rest of the story supports, or E.L. James has a very different definition of rough than I think most people would, because the scene as described in the book, I'm not sure I would categorize as rough sex. They literally just have sex and she has a butt plug in. Like, that is it. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's the second one.
Yeah, I think it's the second one as well. But I would like to think that maybe it's the first one that she's like, I want rough sex, and he's like, okay, you don't really. He has figured her out at this point, and it's like, okay, I know what you mean when you say rough sex, but I do think it is the second one, because I remember reading that scene, I was like, that wasn't okay. Yeah. That wasn't even the roughest sex in this book. Like,
I have that reaction to a lot of the times that they do kink in these books. I'm like, are you though?
I mean, like, okay, yeah.
The movie cuts Layla coming back to see Anna and Christian, and the revelation that his former subs have a club. They call themselves
the Sub Club. The best. Amazing.
The movie would have just had to do so much exposition to make that scene work, and it would have been awful.
No, it was a very smart decision to cut this, because we get introduced to another former sub, and none of this goes anywhere.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Nothing. They just like, oh, Christian gets mad about it, fires Prescott, unfires Prescott. Like, nothing comes of it. It's just like...
I mean, I guess the only thing this maybe does is confirm that Layla is not working with Jack, but we already
pretty much knew that. Yeah. Yeah, because she comes in and basically apologizes and is like, sorry, it was a blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really mean anything. Anna doesn't really change much from it. Like, she doesn't get a lot out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just felt completely pointless. To me, it literally felt like if this were written in the chapter by chapter sort of, online version, that like E.L. James is like, I need a chapter tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Layla shows up and they have a confrontation, and oh my goodness. Like, because the previous chapter ends with, Layla, there's a Layla here to see you, Anna. End of chapter. And it's like, oh, that's a fun hook. Like, that's a fun, like, whoa, what's going to happen? But then literally nothing interesting happens. It's like, all right, fine.
Which is a recurring element of these books.
Very true.
Speaking of things that the movie skip, that was a good decision. Ray's car accident.
My God, yes.
I guess it was nice to see Anna focused on something other than Christian.
This is true.
But again, this isn't something like this whole plot line with Ray getting into a car accident. He's in the hospital forever. It doesn't serve the overall story. It's just drama for drama's sake.
Absolutely drama. Both of these chapters feel like filler.
Yes.
Drama for drama's sake. They don't really mean anything. They don't do anything for the story, for the characters.
But I want to bring up in this scene, because this made me so mad, when they're sitting in the waiting room. So Anna goes to the hospital. Jose and his dad are there because they were also in the car, but they're pretty much fine.
There's a weird
like dissonance between the injuries.
And there's also a weird thing where like, and it never goes anywhere. And I forgot about this because when they show up, Jose's dad he was driving, and he explains like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, he's trying to like apologize and take responsibility for it. And Jose keeps like shushing him. Yeah. He's like, it's not your fault. It was a drunk driver or whatever. And it almost read to me like there was going to be some deeper intrigue of like, his dad was responsible somehow, and Jose's
Yeah, and
like
they're trying to like cover it up.
well, or Jose specifically is,
Yeah.
because like again, his dad seems to be like just like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened, I didn't see him, and Jose's like, it's not like, and I don't know, it just read so weird to me. I was like, what is why is
yeah,
he?
it is weird.
And anyways, but yeah, so they're Jose, yeah.
So they're all in the waiting room. Christian did not come because he has this super important business meeting with these like Japanese businessmen or something like
Taiwanese.
that. Taiwanese, was it?
Yes.
Because
I have a note about that later.
And he's like, I'll come as soon as I can, but I have to do this meeting.
Yeah.
So Anna goes, and so she's in this waiting room, and she's like freaking out, understandably.
Yeah.
And like shivering, freezing cold. So Jose gives her his jacket, and then Christian arrives and is mad about it.
Yeah.
He's like, I can just about tolerate you wearing another man's jacket. Bro, that other man was looking out for your wife's well-being while you schmoozed with businessmen, so please take several seats.
Yeah, it's the worst. He's the worst. He's terrible. My favorite thing, I mean, I say my favorite thing, it's another instance of Christian being absolutely terrible, but it legitimately made me laugh out loud while I was reading this, is that in the waiting room, they're still waiting. Her dad is in surgery. We don't know what's...
Yeah, we don't know if he's dead, alive, what's going to happen.
He's in surgery, and has been in surgery for hours or whatever at this point. And my favorite moment in this is that they walk up, the doctor walks out, the surgeon walks out to give them the news, and Christian and Anna walk up, and the doctor goes, Miss Steele, and Christian, let me remind you, she is waiting to find out whether her father is alive or dead. Christian goes, that's Mrs. Gray. You absolute fuck. What? He corrects the doctor about her name before he can tell her whether or not her dad has survived the car accident he was in, which is just the most psychopathic shit I can possibly imagine.
It's the perfect encapsulation of his character,
yes,
though.
It's just nuts. I love it. I literally laughed out loud reading that. Also, so after they figure out he's going to be okay or whatever, there's this insane scene where everybody has left. It's just the two of them in the waiting room. And I don't even remember, this may be with the jacket thing or something, I don't know, but they're joking. She makes a joke about him spanking her, or he makes a joke about spanking her. And as they're doing this flirty joking about spanking, it's described that a young couple walks into the waiting room sobbing, and Christian turns to her and goes, I guess they need the room more than we do. And they walk out. And I was like, what? You guys are... And they both like laugh to each other like, hee hee hee, let's go spank somewhere else. And it's like, we don't... Literally, like, that they could have just lost a child, or like, we have no idea what happened there. But the way it's written, again, is so psychopathic. I'm like, what is happening? It's so weird.
Movie cuts more of Christian telling Anna how young she looks.
Yes, which is constant and all the time. He also, this is from earlier, but there's a line where he's like, you're so young, I like making out with you. I think that's during the baseball scene or whatever, during the couch. You're so young, I like making out with you. Oh my God.
The movie hastens the plot.
Yes.
This is like at least 2/3 of the way into this book when I wrote the note, when will a fucking plot happen in this goddamn book?
Yes.
My kingdom for a plot. Nothing happens in this book. The entire story is in like the last 3 chapters.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's all just meaningless stuff until the kidnapping, the actual kidnapping of Mia happens. Yeah, absolutely. The movie does cut a very stupid plot line. I say very stupid. It's not. It's just meaningless plot line where we find out that Christian is buying a Taiwanese shipyard. And these are the Taiwanese businessmen from earlier that he was meeting with. so that he can build his boats. What boats? Who knows? I don't even know what boats. I thought he was getting into making solar powered phones or what. Now he's making boats. I have no idea. But he's buying a Taiwanese shipyard to build his boats. And she's like, but don't you have a shipyard here in the States? And he gets like, yeah, but if I get one in Taiwan, I can make them cheaper. And I was like, wait a second. I thought he was supposed to be the one good billionaire. You're telling me Christian Grey is buying a shipyard in Taiwan so he can exploit foreign labor for cheap? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I thought he was supposed to be the one good billionaire, E.L. James. I thought that was the whole thing. He was like the one good one. And then you write a whole plot line in where, okay, great. Amazing. Great. The movie cuts the whole yard thing, which is terrible.
Yeah,
I hate it.
what even was that?
There's a very minimal thing. I think it's similar. She's going for a thing similar to the Laters, where she's trying to make Yar happen. Where it's stop trying to make Yar happen. Where it's apparently like a ship term or like a piloting term or something.
Yeah, it was like a reference from a movie or something, they say.
Anyways, but I don't even remember what it means, but they say it to each other a handful of times, and I care so little about it that I don't remember what it's something to do with ships, or it just means good, or I don't know, whatever. They get the fuck out of here with Yar. It's weird. It's stupid. I did a little detail in the film that I liked. I liked having Anna go to Jack's bail hearing, kind of like in disguise, to like see it. I don't know. It doesn't really mean anything or matter, but I thought it was interesting. At least she's doing something involved in the plot. I don't know.
Movie cuts. When her dad's in the hospital, they stay at the hotel where they, like, the first night that she stayed with him, where they were. And so she's getting ready that morning, and then she uses his toothbrush again, but this time just because she can.
Yeah.
She's like, for old time's sake, I shall use my husband's toothbrush. Fucking weirdo. This book also has a transvaginal ultrasound in it.
Yep.
That the movie cuts. I don't know why we had to go into detail about it being a we could have just not mentioned it.
Yeah.
We could have just not mentioned it.
We could have just not mentioned it. But this, to me, a lot of this was, or at least somewhat, the movie nailed it. This whole interaction with the doctor, because in the book, her doctor is terrible. Specifically, so she's like, "Hey, you've been missing all your appointments for your shot or your birth control shot or whatever. We got to make sure you're not pregnant before you give you your next shot. Oh, surprise, you're pregnant." And then they have this whole conversation, and her doctor never once mentions the option of abortion to her.
Her doctor doesn't even say, like, oh, let's talk about what your options are. Nothing. Just assumes she's going to keep the baby.
She assumes she's going to keep it and gives her a pamphlet about, like, do's and don'ts when you're pregnant or whatever. And I was like, revoke this, fire this, get rid of this doctor. This is terrible. You're also in Seattle. It's not like they're in the middle. Like, it was so strange. But the movie kind of captures that in that the doctor also never mentions any options or anything like that. But there are a few better in the movie moments here. By not having the obvious reference to abortion, or no, not making it obvious. To me, it was very obvious that she was pregnant from like chapter 3.
Yeah, there were hints scattered throughout.
The tease is very obvious early on. I thought just having it be a complete surprise made more sense. Like she throws up after the bail hearing and then goes to the doctor and then is like, "Oh, I'm pregnant. Holy shit." Whereas, like I said, I figured it out on page 60 because she has this line about being, "Oh, I'm so up and down today. What's wrong with me? I don't know. My hormones must be out of whack." Like it's not what she's. But yeah. Also. The film removes the weird subplot point about her assistant moving all of her doctor's appointments without telling her.
Yeah.
And she's like...
In the book, she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell Christian about it because he's going to fire her." And I'm like, you probably should.
If your assistant moves doctor's appointments and does not tell you about it, that is not good. That is very bad. What the hell? Terrible. And also... the movie removes Anna's thought, again, subtle pro-life messaging in this book. At one point in the book, Anna thinks to herself, "Perhaps I should end this. I halt my thoughts on that dark path." And I was like, color me unsurprised that E.L. James would consider abortion that dark path.
Yeah.
But the movie does, like I said, kind of nail the fact that it's just never even considered. Like it's never like the movie or the book considers it even more than the movie, because at least Anna thinks we hear her think about it. Whereas in the movie, it's just never even. It's just a void. Like it's just like, yeah, she's gonna keep it. Obviously, duh.
I do want to say I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I had the thought when we got to the pregnancy plot that I would have just about died laughing if Erica had just had her get an abortion.
Yeah,
she was just like, oh, okay, well, let's get an abortion then.
Whoop, solve that problem. Moving on.
Don't even have to tell Christian about it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Christian, though, the movie does somewhat temper his reaction to her being pregnant. It is a particularly stunningly bad reaction, even for Christian.
Oh, in the book, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, in the film, he's still an asshole, but like kind of in a normal person way, and not in an "I may murder you" kind of way, like that the book is. Yeah.
One thing that the movie does nail about his reaction, though, is him being like, "You're gonna choose the baby over me."
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, you should probably definitely not have a baby with a person who's jealous of a 5-week-old fetus.
Yes.
Like, if your partner is jealous of your child, you should not have a child with that person.
Or or jealous of the collection of cells.
Yeah. Do not have a child with that person.
No. Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not.
So then we get to the plot.
Yeah, something actually happens.
Something actually happens. I thought the movie having Jack send Anna a picture of Mia raised the stakes. In the book, we don't know absolutely for sure that he's actually kidnapped Mia.
Right, he just says
that he has, but for all we know, he could have just stolen her phone.
Yeah.
But I thought that raised the stakes.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. Yeah. But also, did you notice it was definitely like a cheeky phone ad?
Was it?
I swear, I don't know. I thought they said the brand of the phone. Maybe not. But he's like, yeah, this phone. Oh, it's great something and a 20 megapixel camera, and he sends her the picture of Mia kidnapped. I could be wrong. Maybe they don't mention what brand it is, and maybe it's just like a silly way for him to like lead into sending the photo. But I swear I could have swore he said that they were like that it was, because I remember thinking like, was that like a weird
this movie brought to you by
if you need to kidnap somebody and send evidence of their capture to your in order to collect ransom, choose Galaxy or whatever, like a Samsung Galaxy.
It would be funny if it was a BlackBerry.
Yeah. After the kidnapping, I thought that in the film the phone call between Christian and Anna at the bank escalates in a much better way, and Christian reacts much more like a normal person and not an emotion monster. Because in the book, he's just like, "You're leaving me? Oh my god!" Like he immediately just like snaps. And I get the whole thing is he's like the abandonment issues and stuff. Like I get it, but it just it just he feels like a much more real human being in the films, and it all happens much more normal, and he clearly realizes something is wrong, and since at this point he actually does kind of trust her, and he's also in the film he trusts her and is just like kind of a normal guy with some issues that makes mistakes. He figures out something must be up. Yeah. In the book, it feels a lot less reasonable that he figures out something is up. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like in the book, his reaction is so over the top and emotional and whatever. The fact that he then goes on to realize, oh, something must be going on. Oh, and then figures out that like something, and then tracks the phone and all that, feels like he really pulled a 180 there in like his reaction. Whereas in the film, he never has that over the top emotional reaction. He's just like, what? Okay, well, if you say so, take the money, and then like figures out what's going on. And I thought that all just made a lot more sense in the film.
And the movie cuts so much from the end of the story. Much. There's like an entire chapter in the book where Anna is unconscious in a hospital bed, just listening to people talk around her.
Isn't this a thing in, am I wrong that this was a thing in Twilight when Bella
when
gets
she's
turned into a
when
vampire.
she's turning into a
Yeah.
vampire. But I feel like it's shorter
It does, yeah.
in Breaking Dawn. But then there's also like at one point she's listening to Christian talk to Ray.
Oh God, the
and
worst.
Ray's like, if you don't take her across your knee, I sure as hell will.
Yeah,
What the fuck? Like,
so weird and gross.
this could have been like a nice little scene, but we just had to slide something weird and regressive into there, didn't
We're supposed
we?
to like Ray, goddammit.
Right?
What are you doing? And I think that's what it was. It's like, see, you like Ray, and he thinks the same way about Anna that Christian does. So Christian's not entirely wrong. I think that's what that was. I think. Also, after she wakes up, they remove the entire recounting of the conversation he had with Elena. It's just boring and drawn out and doesn't matter. And then also they remove the entire subplot where Elena's ex-husband,
Oh my God.
bailed Jack out.
Yeah.
And also we find out he beat up Elena years ago for having sex with Christian, and he hates Christian. And so he's trying to destroy Christian and his company. Or no, and he hates Christian, so Christian is destroying his company. And so he's trying to get revenge on Christian by working with Jack, by bailing him out to kidnap. And we have never met this character. This character literally,
Quite literally, we've never met him.
Never been mentioned, at least from my memory.
I mean, he's probably been mentioned, but
maybe mentioned once, but we have never met him. He's never been quote unquote on screen. What is this? Just make it Elena.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, just make it Elena. What are we? It's so weird. It makes no sense. It just feels like such a stupid last minute attempt to like tie up loose ends and be like, well, how did Jack post bail? Oh, what? This person you don't know bailed him out. Okay, fine. And then also they simplify the whole mother conversation thing down to like a very short scene where Christian or Anna's basically just like, look, this kid will love you. You loved your mother. You just need to forgive her. The kid will love you like you loved your mother. Get over it. And then he gets over it. And it's like so much better and less drawn out and annoying. It's so much better.
I liked the little scene at the end of the movie where Christian is cooking.
Yeah.
I thought that was cute.
My note was just, that's cute.
Yeah.
I had the same note.
I also liked seeing them actually go to his mother's grave. They mention in the book that they went, but I thought it was nice to
we
show.
actually see him there.
Yeah, a little quick
Putting
shot
some
of
flowers in. Yeah. There's this moment in the final sex scene or one of the final sex scenes where Christian grabs her underwear and she says, thinks, my panties disintegrate in his hand. And I was like, is this like an expensive panty thing that they can just disintegrate when a person grabs them? Were you wearing edible panties, ma'am? What is happening?
How would you go to the bathroom? How would you take them off and on? They disintegrate upon touch.
I don't know.
I don't know.
She uses the word disintegrate, and I was like, what? What? Okay, sure, fine. And then my favorite part of this entire film, and maybe the series, my favorite part in the whole series, I think, is still riding crop ass smack.
I think my favorite
Music
part
drop,
in the
that's the
whole
best
series
part.
was the movie's negotiation scene.
That was probably the best part. That was probably like the best part. Yeah, I agree. It's very good. I'm talking like ridiculous, cheesy, stupid. This is great.
I would have to think more about that.
I love riding crop ass smack music drop. Riding crop ass smack music drop is need that on a t-shirt. But I love that. But this is pretty close. We straight up get a Tumblr fan video of Christian and Anna's like greatest love moments.
The highlight reel.
Set to Love Me Like You Do. It's amazing. So that all happens. We get like a flashback to all their moments from the whole series of like them meeting and all the little moments set to this song. And then at the end, we get the scene where Anna wants to go into the playroom and she like puts his jeans out and like she gets in her like sub clothes and like goes in the playroom and texts him. But I also say this is better than the movie because one, it's preceded by the just incredible music video moment. But then there's this little detail where he texts her or she texts him, for your pleasure or something like that. And then he comes into the playroom. In the book, she emails him, and the subject line is "my husband's pleasure."
Blech.
And he replies to that by adding a little arrow pointing to "my husband's pleasure," and that says, "Love this title, baby," which is just so weird and also
Worse.
gross.
It's so gross.
And just changing that to like "for your pleasure" or whatever is better. But and then the door, as the music swells, she's on the floor in like a submissive position, and she looks over her shoulder, and then the door slams, or not slams, but like swings shut, and we go to black, and it reminded me of my favorite moments from the previous movies where they really understood the assignment. And I was like, yes, more of this. And it was like, it took to the very end of the film to get it. And I just loved it so much. And then even the line, which this comes from the book, where he walks in and he turns to her and he's like, "You're topping from the bottom, Mrs. Gray." That's from the book. And to me, that just felt like one of those little moments where at some point over the series of writing this, somebody explained the concept of topping from the bottom to E.L. James. And she's like, "Oh my God, is that what I've been writing this whole time?
I thought I invented that.
Well, I should have them reference that as the last line of the book." It's amazing. I love it. And I love the movie. It's hilarious. It's everything about that ending before the credits roll is incredible.
And then we get a 20 to 30 second epilogue instead of 40 fucking pages.
I had the exact same note. I said the epilogue is 30 seconds instead of 30 pages. Incredible.
The epilogue in this book is just another chapter.
It is.
It's just chapter 26.
It is not an epilogue.
Oh my God.
It's so funny because she understands prologues. They're like 1 or 2 pages written in a different, like in third person and like covering like some element of the story that we wouldn't get otherwise. And the epilogue is literally just another chapter of this book. They have a sex scene at the end of this book where she has him come dom her or whatever, and he's like, "You're topping from the bottom," and then we see that sex scene, and then it ends, and then it cuts into the epilogue, and we read another sex scene, and I was like, "What are we? That's not what an epilogue is. You don't know what a fucking epilogue is." And then we cut back to the C-section.
Yeah, when she had their first kid.
None of this should be in the epilogue.
I don't know. And then.
Oh my God.
The single worst thing that Erica has written in the entirety of this series, I will put my whole chest into that. This is the worst thing she wrote in these entire books.
Yes.
So in this epilogue, they have sex.
Yep.
And then we find out that Anna is pregnant at this time.
Yes.
With a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And Christian is like, "How's our daughter?"
Yep.
And Anna says,
"Yep.
I think she likes sex already." No.
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 Nope.
No.
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 Mm-mm.
You're not allowed to write that.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm. Nope. Mm-mm.
And then, like a paragraph later, Christian talks about how excited he is to taste breast milk again. Why am I being subjected to this at the 11th hour of this series?
E.L. James going out on top. She knew. She was like, "You know what? Fuck you all. Here's one more page of pure torture. Go fuck yourselves." And then she rode off into the sunset and wrote some more books. But oh my God, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's such a, I was like, what a page. What a page of text that a person wrote. Amazing. And yeah, the book or the film, just to wrap that up, the film actually understands what an epilogue is. We get like a mid-credit scene where it's all the epilogue in the book should have been, which is them like as a family, a couple of years down the road or whatever, a little boy eating a popsicle,
she's pregnant,
frolicking through the meadow. Oh, Taylor's daughter's here! Yay! We're all happy. The end. Like that's the epilogue. What is the rest of this shit? What are we doing? Oh my god! All right, we have a handful of things to talk about in the movie. Nailed it.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
I don't have any strong feelings about the movie moving him giving her the charm bracelet to the opening of the story, but the charm bracelet is there.
It sure is. Once again dating this to 2011.
Right. Oh, he gives her that charm bracelet, and I was like, ew, a charm bracelet?
Pandora.
Gross.
Charm bracelet collection, or whatever, yeah. There's also this line in the book that comes, or in the film that comes straight out of the book where that I was like, holy shit, as I mentioned earlier, movie Anna is in this book.
Yeah.
It's just only this book where Christian says to her, you were very disobedient. And she says, yes. And he's like, what are we going to do about that? And she says, learn to live with it. And
Got
Anna,
him.
yeah. And I was like, holy shit, it's movie Anna. And they put it in the book, or they put it in the film. And I was like, oh, there you go. Fantastic.
They do the thing with the feet handcuffs on the honeymoon where like her feet are cuffed to her hands.
Yeah.
And I think in the book she's like, it's hedonism gone wild, and I was like, it's mild bondage. I need you to calm down.
Your wrists are restrained.
Oh,
Hedonism
no.
gone wild. Okay. All right.
They have car sex in both the book and the movie.
Yes.
And she's like, car sex? And I just want to know, what is Erica's obsession with the absolute most overrated places to bang? Because bathtubs and showers are definitely on there. Cars are high on that list too.
Literally like 1 and 2.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Highly overrated place to have sex.
Yes. 1 and 2 with a bullet. Literally probably car or shower / bathtub and car.
Yeah.
Like those are like 1 and 2. It's terrible. Also, during that scene, the movie cuts this terrible line. I put it in here, but this is better in the movie technically, where he's like, have sex here. I don't even remember the context. It's during the car sex scene, but he just says to her, do you think I'd let anyone watch my wife come? And I don't know what it is about it, but I just hate that line. It's just weird. It's just, again, I don't know. I don't know. Don't like it. Also, the movie, this is a movie nailed it because the movie is also a weird commercial for Audi cars.
Yeah.
We just get nonstop Audis everywhere. And it's just like, all right, there's so many mentions of the Audi R8 in this book and how cool it is and fast and sleek and sexy. And it's in the movie. So good job.
I mean, at least she knows what a fancy car is, though.
Yeah.
Whereas in Twilight, they're like, ooh, the Volvo.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We talked about the haircutting scene,
but
a
also
little bit.
real quick, he's a billionaire. An Audi is a nice car, but he should have like a McLaren or something. He should have like a Lamborghini or
yeah, that's fair.
Like Audi, again, Audis are very nice. I'm not saying, but like compared, anyways. And I could be wrong. Maybe the Audi R8 is like comparatively priced to a Lamborghini. I don't know, but whatever. Sorry.
We talked about the haircutting scene earlier. I didn't really miss the sex scene in it, so I put this here because she does, in fact, just like cut his hair with desk scissors.
Yes.
Like, she's like, where? She's gonna cut his hair. She's like, where are the scissors? And he's like, oh, they're on my desk.
Some on my desk.
Like, you're just gonna cut his hair with any old pair of scissors. Spoilers, that's not how hair cutting works. You have to have sharp scissors to cut hair.
Yeah. Maybe keeps those scissors very sharp.
Perhaps. But nothing dulls scissors like cutting paper.
It's true.
Which is why you don't cut paper with your fabric scissors. Anyway, pretty much everything about her getting drinks with Kate, pretty spot on.
Yeah.
No complaints there.
Yeah. The red room edging scene playroom edging scene is pretty spot on, where he keeps edging her and then doesn't let her finish. I will say, I thought in the book that his aftercare was a bit better because in the book, once she's safe word, she says red, and he like immediately unties her, and he like picks her up and puts her in a blanket and like carries her over and sets her down on the couch and is like holding her and stuff. And in the film, he unties her and she like runs off and like sits down on the couch, and he kind of stands across the room and like they just talk.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem as in bad of a place in the film as she is in the book.
She's in a pretty bad place in the book, but
I don't know. It just felt like he actually, I was like, oh, I was like, again, I was so taken aback by even a modicum of like reasonable BDSM practice that I was like, oh, look at that. Look at him.
I don't know. Well, first off, I want to talk about the fact that it takes Erica 2.5 of these books to introduce a fucking vibrator.
Oh, yes.
A vibrator.
Yes.
Everyone's first sex toy.
He's like, he walks over and turns it on, and she's like, I hear it buzzing. What's that? He's like, this is a wand.
It's a wand,
It's
baby.
like,
it vibrates. Gross.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This scene was really just very back and forth for me, because I agree that his aftercare was a little better.
Well, it's not amazing, but compared to anything we've ever seen from him,
compared to anything previously, it was great aftercare.
Yeah.
But the dude is also, he's just so unbelievably bad at being a dom. Like, he's so bad at it. And the thing to me is that he appears puzzled by her reaction to this. And I'm like, how do you not at all understand the emotional aspects of submission? Like, you don't understand it at all. And that is not acceptable as a dom.
No, and I think the idea is he's not supposed to understand the emotional, because he is emotionally stunted. He does not get he doesn't realize the emotional turmoil that he is suffering under. And so he doesn't realize, because he was abused and because his experience with BDSM was unhealthy, he doesn't know how to practice it healthily. Again, I think that I go back and forth on this constantly about whether or not E.L. James realizes that
this is intentional. I don't know.
I don't know either, but it does at least at times feel like that is intentional, because he does need to grow from that to some extent. But at the same time, I don't know. But I will agree, because like I said, as I was reading the scene, I was like, boy, has edging never has edging been less sexy than it is in this scene, where he's just like using it as this weird analog for her breaking her promises and like and like fucking like reprimanding her while doing it. It's awful. The whole thing is awful. And then like you said, he doesn't understand emotionally what's going on. Because at the end, after she freaks out, he like doesn't get like why she's like upset about it, and he's like, "Well, orgasm denial is a standard tool in blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Tool, man?" I was like, "Okay, so like charitably, I could get what he's saying about BDSM max. Like if I like squint, like it's a standard tool in BDS, like, but." They're not tools. They're like fun things you do. You weirdo. You dork. Like, within the context of the scene, calling it a tool, I think kind of could make sense. But without, they've now broken the scene and are now discussing it afterwards. And he's like, well, it's a standard tool. And it's like, what are you motherfuckers? You're not a psychologist. What are you doing? Like, this isn't, you're not doing fucking, therapy on her. Like, when you don't use tools, it's just so weird. I don't know. And then he also admits in the book that she asked him if he was ever going to let her finish, and he's like, no. And it's like, well, I'm glad she's safe worded then, you fucking weirdo. Ugh. Again, because they didn't establish, just to clarify, if you want to do a denial thing where they don't let them, you can do that if you establish this ahead of time, and that's something that both partners are into, blah, blah, blah. But it's, anyways, sorry.
Yeah. Anna does see Elliot with Gia Mateo while they're in Aspen. Also, Christian's line, Elliot's fucked most of Seattle.
Yes.
In the film.
Yes. And this is, I honestly, this is better in the film because they cut Christian's joke afterwards, because he says Elliot's fucked most of Seattle, but then he jokes mainly women. And like, it says Christian jokes, but I'm here to say that Elliot is the bi icon that this book doesn't deserve.
Oh, come on. I'll jump on board with that. Bi icon.
I mean,
Elliot Gray.
It's actually just homophobia or biphobia or whatever, but if you want to be like charitable, or not even charitable, if you want to interpret it incorrectly, you could interpret it as him saying that. Yeah. Another thing the movie nails, Christian plays piano and sings for everybody. It happens at the brunch in the film, or in the book.
Yeah, they just move it to a different place.
But they just move it to Aspen, but it's the same thing. But I can't remember, in the book he's playing Wherever You Will Go, and I don't remember if that's what he's playing in the film or not. I couldn't remember what song it was. I don't think it was Wherever You Will Go. I don't think it was.
It is funny though. He's like playing and singing, and they're all like, "Whoa,
what? He must be super happy." Yeah.
But he only plays the sad piano when he's a sad boy.
But he sings and plays piano when he's happy.
He's a happy boy.
Yeah.
So while we were in the process of reading this book, you texted me at one point to let me know that there was a three-word sentence in chapter 11 that made you lose your mind.
Yeah.
And I hadn't gotten to it yet. And I was reading chapter 11 and I was worried that I wasn't going to know what the three-word sentence was.
You were always going to know.
But I was always going to know. Because the three-word sentence, they're in the playroom and Anna sees him
go over to
the chest of drawers or whatever, and thinks to herself, the butt drawer.
The butt drawer? Question mark?
The butt drawer.
The butt drawer? Which is undeniably three of the funniest words in a, like, the combination of three words in the human or English language combined in the funniest order possible. The butt drawer? And with a question mark, the butt drawer? Just amazing. Incredible.
Oh, may you all have a butt drawer in your lives. We don't, regrettably, we don't get the sentence, the butt drawer in the movie.
Because again, she thinks it in the book.
But we do see the butt drawer.
We do see the butt drawer, and we both were like, yes, because he walks over there I think it's during that montage.
Yeah.
He walks over and opens a drawer, and it's full of anal toys, and it was very funny. We were like, the butt drawer! Yeah. That's the moment where if you're watching these movies as a drinking game, when they opens the butt drawer, you all yell butt drawer and you finish your drink or whatever, or take a shot or something. Incredible.
Throughout the end of the book and the movie, Anna refers to the fetus as her little blip.
Yep.
Which I hated.
Not my favorite.
Although I will confess that I have yet to hear a nickname for a fetus that I like.
Yeah,
so.
I will say I didn't hate that. I hated it within the context of this film because everything surrounding her pregnancy was so toxic and awful, and it's like a weird pro-choice thing or pro-life thing and or anti-choice thing. I'm trying to wean myself off saying pro-life, but I'm bad about it. And then the whole relationship dynamic is weird and awful, and she uses it as like an ultimatum to like get him to reform. It's all bad, but I think within the context of a healthy relationship where you want to have a child and then you go and you're like together and you see the very early sonogram or whatever, I think being like, oh, a little blip, I think that could be a cute.
It could be.
I don't think that's a horrible, like, I don't know. I could be like, oh, that's cute. But again, within the context of this story, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't
know. Maybe it's just who I am as a person. I just always find fetus nicknames a little grating.
Yeah. Again, I think for me, the fact that she calls it a little blip helps because it's not like a name or like a...
True.
You know what I mean?
She doesn't name it.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, that little thing. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it almost, like, I think within a good context could be like a kind of a cute way to refer to the thing that is the fetus inside of you that is not a baby, or, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I will also say that I prefer Little Blip to Christian, who was calling it Junior.
Yes.
Prefer it to that.
Absolutely, yes.
But he gets upset about the pregnancy. The movie nails him like coming back drunk. Anna sees the text from Elena and knows that he was with her. And then she goes and sleeps in the playroom. And she goes to sleep on the tiny little couch right next to the giant 4-poster bed.
Because in the book, as I was reading that, I was like, we know there's a bed in this room, and it
Yeah.
says she lays on like it's got some sort of name, something couch
Like
or whatever.
the chaise lounge
It's
or something
like Charleston
like that.
couch,
Yeah.
some weird name. And then I was like, why? There's a bed. We know there's a bed. And then in the film, she goes in there and lays on the couch right next to the bed. And I was like, well, you know what? Good job, film. You kept that stupid little detail. Amazing.
The movie also keeps most of Anna's dressing down of Christian when he
Yes.
comes back.
After he's drunk the next
yeah.
morning. Yeah.
Which was very deserved
Yeah.
and a long time coming.
Yeah, and it keeps it the same where she's like getting dressed in front of him. Like
Mm-hmm.
she starts off naked and is getting dressed for work or whatever, and they're having this argument. And ultimately in the film, I don't even think he does in the book. He might, I can't remember. But in the film, he like actually apologizes, like
Yeah.
says like I'm sorry or whatever. And I would say the movie is better. That whole conversation plays out similarly, but a slightly better. And one of the specific changes that I thought was better is that they cut this part in the book in that scene where she's naked and he's like getting horny during this,
Yeah.
which is always a thing. Like even during their fights, he's like, if she's doing anything remotely, like not even sensual, but just like is naked or in any state of undress or something, he's like, I kind of want to have sex with you, even though we're like arguing. It's very strange. But in this scene, she's like half naked and like putting on stockings or whatever. And then he like starts walking towards her and she can tell that he's like amorous or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't even think about it. And he responds to her saying, don't even think about it by saying, you're my wife. And I was like, you know what? It makes sense that Christian would not believe that spousal rape was a thing. That
Yep.
like
Yeah,
the
that
fact
tracks.
that you're my wife is his response to don't even think about having sex with me it makes a lot
Yep.
of sense. But
It tracks.
I appreciated that the film cut that out.
A movie pretty much nails everything with the Jack Hyde Mia abduction plot. He calls from her phone. 5 million in 2 hours, or
Yeah.
Mia gets it. She
Taking her
takes
gun.
Layla's gun, and then she becomes Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Kristen thinks that she's leaving him.
Yeah. The whole phone swap plan thing, I thought it's very much similar. The movie, I thought it was kind of in the book, it's like a surprise. The whole fact that she swapped the phone, and that's how Christian was able to track her and get to where she was and kind of help save her at the end. And in the film, we see this all happening. Like we see him realizing what's going on as it's happening, and him tracking her phone and trying to catch her. In the book, after she wakes up in the hospital, he explains what happened basically, and we find out that she swapped the phone and all this sort of stuff. I kind of liked the book's version of it being like as a reveal, because she says to the bank guy, I have one more thing I need from you, but we don't know what that thing is. And it kind of leaves, it feels like heisty a little bit, like a heist movie, which I thought was kind of interesting. That being said, it's not particularly interesting in either. So just showing it as it happens, I think makes as much sense as anything. I mean, the same things happen. It's just how it's told. I don't know.
And then Jack's accomplice ends up being Elizabeth from work, a character.
Who? Pardon me, who?
It's a character we've interacted with like twice, maybe.
Yes, literally twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sure, great.
And then she shoots him in the kneecaps.
Yes. And it's so funny in the movie because she shoots him in the kneecap, and in the movie, where all the characters are laid out in this scene, she shoots at Jack. Mia is sitting on the chair right behind where Jack is standing. She so easily could have shot Mia right in the fucking face when she shoots Jack in the knee.
But she's so good at shooting.
Even still,
she exercises her Second Amendment rights.
I know. She will protect him always. Yeah, but she just fucking caps him in the knee, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" In the film, that shot where they reverse shot and show where Jack was and Mia was, I was like, "That, oh my god, this would have been a very different ending."
Imagine.
Yeah, very close there.
Then we find out that Jack had video of him fucking Elizabeth and all of his former assistants, which is how he had like leverage over them.
Blackmailed Elizabeth to help him.
Yeah.
Which they never explain why. I mean, okay. Again, this kind of ties in. Maybe it's just, I don't know. The blackmail is we had sex on tape. Who is he gonna send that? we don't know enough about Elizabeth to know
Right,
why
like-
that would be.
like, is she married?
Is she married?
Or...
Is she just worried? Is she have a prominent social position where that would be a problem? Like, I get not wanting, you know, a sex tape of you made without your knowledge or something,
right,
to get out. But also, like, depending on the context, would that convince you to, like, commit a kidnap? Again, we don't know enough about Elizabeth to know why that's good blackmail.
I guess she has a good job at the company or whatever, so maybe.
Yeah, I guess that could be. Yeah, that could play into it. I don't know. It just
But
again,
yeah, you're right.
I felt like
we don't know
more
enough
details.
about her.
Because, like, again, depending on the context, if somebody was like, "Hey, you had sex with this person. Look at this video of you having sex with this person. I'll release it if you don't help me kidnap somebody." I'd be like, "Well, yeah, I had sex with that." I mean, I don't really want that tape out there, but, like, also I don't want to kidnap a person. So I guess they're going to have to put that tape out there. I don't know what, like, what.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I guess you're going to have to release it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, is he like the president of the United States? Or, like, what is going on where that's such a big deal that you agree to kidnapping? And I think all it ties back to is similar to the thing earlier with the, you don't want your boobs on the front of the magazine. It's just E.L. James's conception of and like prudishness about sexuality and the whole taboo nature of sexuality and how it should all be behind closed doors and it's, I don't know, again, it's just, to me it's just like, yeah, okay, like, again, fine. I'm not kidnapping a person and helping you kidnap someone, sorry.
We also find out that Christian and Jack were in the same foster home for a while before Christian got adopted.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this all started, is that Christian was adopted by the Greys.
Yeah.
And Jack was very jealous about this. And
he went on to have, like, a hard knock life.
Yeah. And I do really wish that the book or the movie had acknowledged and explored the fact that Christian just got really fucking lucky.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what this whole thing is it's basically an exploration of moral luck. The book and movie just doesn't have anything interesting to say about it. But it is literally just, hey, look, this guy, they were the same situation, growing up together. One of these kids got adopted by a rich, affluent family. The other one did not.
Yeah.
One of them is now a billionaire. The other one was like leading a fairly normal life, but also was an asshole. Like and we don't know why necessarily he ended up being the asshole that he was. The abusive asshole that we don't know what led down that path. But like the story just makes Jack the villain out of this, but it doesn't explore why that's interesting. It doesn't like explore the fact. It's just like, oh yeah, he was mad that you got adopted by millionaire parents, and it's like, are we gonna comment on that at all, and about how wow, like, is Christian gonna evaluate his privilege at all or anything?
Absolutely not.
At all? No. Okay, cool, great. Dang, all right. Like, why would you? It's just like such a ready-made point to like explore something interesting in this book, and they just do nothing with it. We could talk about privilege, we could talk about class, we could talk about all this stuff, and the book's like, nah, Jack was an asshole. Oh yeah, Christian got adopted by millionaire parents, but like, well, get over it, all right? Like,
and now he's a good CEO.
Yeah, who exploits workers in Taiwan. Great, fantastic. All right, we got a handful of odds and ends before we get to our predictions. So all of these movies have been incredibly heavy on the needle drops, but this movie had like 6 songs in the first 20 minutes. It was nonstop at the beginning of this film.
It was needle drop after needle drop.
What is happening? It was crazy.
Early in the book, I don't remember the context of this, but this was on page 50. Anna says to Christian, "You are so kinky." And I made the joke in my notes, was that a thesis statement, Erica? And I think the line that you brought up way at the beginning of the episode about
this is what despots do for their women, or
is
the women
probably the actual thesis statement of this series. But having Anna just state "you are so kinky," I used to teach college freshman composition courses. Yeah. And it just really reminded me of like, in this essay, I will prove that Christian Grey
Is
is
very
in
kinky.
fact so kinky.
Yeah. There's this throwaway line that I just didn't even understand what the context of, where Anna thinks to herself, Christian had a conversation. It's a flashback during the honeymoon to right after the whole birthday party thing.
Yeah.
Where Christian had a conversation with Garrick, his dad, about Elena.
Yeah.
And when he returns from that conversation to talk to Anna, she says, I knew Christian was still smarting from his talk with Garrick about Elena. And talk in the book is in, I swear to God, it's in air quotes. I could be wrong. I don't remember where this is. But even if it's not, I didn't know what this meant. Was it implying that Garrick spanked Christian for being raped by Elena?
Surely not.
What is happening? I don't know.
Like, surely not.
Surely not. It was written so weird. It was one of those moments
it's
where
really
it's like,
weird.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting out of this. It was just very strange.
One thing that I thought was really funny in the book, before it's revealed that the person who set the fire was Jack.
Yeah.
And Anna's like, I just can't imagine who would want to harm Christian. I don't know who would do this. And I'm like, I don't know, probably a lot of people. He's not exactly well liked. And like
we don't know anybody who likes him other than his family.
Yeah, literally, he doesn't have friends.
No.
We don't know of anybody who likes this man except for his family. And also, like, the last book had not one, not two, but 3 villains. So IDK, it could be one of them.
Maybe one of them. It seems pretty obvious. So I just have to mention this because I don't know how I stumbled across this. Apparently Dakota Johnson is canceled.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so I don't know all the details. I don't know the context necessarily, but apparently she defended Armie Hammer, the cannibal guy, and Shia LaBeouf, and was like, all these people getting their careers ruined or something. And it's like, that guy is literally a cannibal. What are you doing? Oh, no. It's very disappointing because I liked her after these movies. And then...
Yeah, that's too bad.
Anyways, I just thought I'd mention it.
So there's a note during the car chase scene. Christian's like, the Dodge behind us has false license plates. And I just want to know, when you have like a security detail, did they just look up the plates of everyone driving around? Like, is that what security does?
My only thing I could think is that they've, and this isn't said in the book, but the only thing that makes sense is that they saw this car and were like, they seem like they're following their car. Like, they saw the SUV and it seemed like they were following Christian and Anna's car. So after a while, they were like, let's check this out, and then
that's fair.
This is the only thing that I can think of what would make sense there. Because it seems like it would be exhausting to look up every single plate of every car that was behind your boss's car. But
just sitting there with a laptop.
Yeah, that's why there's 2 of them. It's just one of them's driving, the other one's just like every license plate. Just look it up. Yeah.
After one of the butt plug scenes, Anna, she looks at the butt plug afterwards, and she's like, "It's surprisingly clean." Which, first of all, why tell us that? Why do we need to know that? Just don't mention it.
Just don't mention it.
But I thought it was interesting because I feel like there is this idea of like pretty girls don't poop.
Yeah. Also, she never eats. I think that's
true.
maybe more
true.
She literally never eats.
She can't be producing that much.
So many days in this book, they'll get to the end of the day and Christian will be like, have you eaten today? And she's like, oh wait, no, I didn't eat today. And it's like, well, all right. So I think that could also play a part. Yeah. There's this great line where Christian says to her, you have perfect breasts. One day I'll fuck them. And she thinks in response to that, what the hell does that mean? And I was like, what? I love that Anna doesn't understand the concept of titty fucking. She's just like, what? What does that mean?
Like, even if you've never heard of it before, it's not that hard to work out. It's not that hard to work out.
It's so funny to me. She's like, what the hell does that mean? Okay.
The emails in the books, they are so much quicker to read. But I'm still kind of mad that they continued through this entire slog of a series.
Yes.
I just feel like there's no reason for them to be emailing each other once they're married.
I just wish it would have switched to text if they were gonna do it.
Yeah, just switch
like
to
I said, there were so many times in this book though when I would hit a patch of emails though and be like, oh yes, let's go. 10 pages out of nowhere.
I mean, if they're texting though, they can't change the subject line every time. So how would we know what was going on?
That is true.
My last note here. There's a scene where they're gonna have sex, and Christian gets out.
This is the baseball, or no?
No, this is some other.
It's
scene.
on the couch though.
Yeah,
because they're on the couch in the living room. Yeah.
But he gets out a towel. He lays a towel down.
Yeah.
And for one wild moment, I thought that Erica was going to attempt to write a squirting scene.
I had the same thought, and I was so excited to see what monstrosity she was going to craft. I was so ready. For the prose, for the misunderstanding of anatomy, just all I was like, let's go. I want to see how E.L. James can butcher this. Let's do it.
It ends up being massage oil, but
I was dying. I had the exact same thought during that. Also, by the way, towels not ideal. Buy a waterproof mattress pad. That's just way better.
Far superior. Even if you are just gonna like use massage oil or whatever
for anything.
Waterproof mattress pad.
Towels are not waterproof. Whatever you put on them can get through to whatever is on the other side. It just makes more sense. Yeah, it's stupid. All right, it's time to find out how we did on our predictions for the 50 Shades Saga.
It's gonna happen, Edward. I just mean it.
You did better than I did.
I don't think either of us did particularly well. So my first prediction was Anna writes the 50 Shades trilogy in universe. That does not happen. To be fair, I think my setup for this was that
you had very good reason to believe that this might happen.
She works for an editor.
Yeah.
We know she's interested in literature and stuff. There's not any of her writing and thing, but she has a line in 50 Shades Darker where she thinks to herself, how am I going to tell Kate all that happened? I should write this down so I don't forget anything. How is that not... At the end of this, we don't get her writing.
I would honestly bet money that Erica was going to do that and then abandoned that plot line.
Yeah. No, 100%. Right. I think that's what happened.
My first prediction was that the wedding plans would immediately spiral out of Anna's control. She would get overwhelmed, and it would make Christian think she was having second thoughts, and they would argue about it all the time. That did not happen.
No.
So.
No, not at all. My second prediction was that Jack Hyde and Elena would team up to form the Legion of Doom to take down Anna and Christian. This also does not happen. Her ex-husband does.
It was Jack Hyde and a character we've never met.
I don't. Okay, my idea is better. I don't. Whatever. Fine.
My second prediction was that Elena and Jack would both show up at the wedding and shout, "I object" at the same time. That did not happen. The wedding was far less of this book than I thought it was going to be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It was barely a mention for the wedding in this. My last prediction, and I'm just trying to clarify on some details here, was that we end on a Harry Potter-style epilogue with Anna chasing her dark-haired children through the seaside meadow, a boy named after her dead father, and a girl named after Christian's dead mother. I pretty much nailed that. The names are mentioned, but I don't remember where they are. I'm trying to find them, and I don't remember.
The boy was Teddy.
He was Teddy, which that's not anybody, right?
I'm like 75% sure that is Anna's dead dad's name.
Is it?
I think so.
Holy shit. And then the girl's name is...
Well, you got pretty close on this one, because they argue about naming her after Christian's mother, and he doesn't want to.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I still can't find the scene where they talk about...
It's his mother's name was Ella.
Phoebe.
Yeah.
They end up naming her Phoebe.
Yeah.
And you're right, they do name him or argue about naming her Ella. So I was close. I would say that I'm gonna count that one. I'm gonna count that as a hit.
I'm pretty sure that this has to be what we had. I think Andy on Facebook.
I don't think this is it, because he said it wasn't during the prediction segment. He said...
Well, now I don't know.
That's the thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
You're going to have to tell us
I'm so glad you brought that up, because
Andy.
I've been thinking that the whole time reading the book. Is Andy said that there was... Because I swear they said in an aside, in an unrelated part of the episode, while I was just like an offhand remark, I predicted the plot of this book. And the only thing I can think is, I think I made an offhand remark of like, are we just going to watch them like go to Aspen and like go on vacation or whatever? And that's the only thing I can think, but I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
So please, Andy, let me know what it is. Because I thought he specifically said that it was not during the prediction segment.
I think you're right.
So
now that I think about it.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I had the same thing. I was like, I don't know. I don't remember what I said and how it predicted this.
But kudos to you on predicting the epilogue.
That was the easiest.
Yeah.
That was the easiest.
I mean, I do want to say real quick, you called it in the notes an HP style epilogue, like Harry Potter style epilogue.
Oh, yeah.
And now it is pretty widely agreed upon amongst people who like Harry Potter, or at least have liked Harry Potter at one time.
Have liked Harry Potter
I know it's
in their
complicated
lives.
now.
We all have complicated relationships
but it is,
now with Harry
it's
Potter.
generally agreed upon that the epilogue in
great.
Harry Potter is kind of trash.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that this is so much worse.
Oh, yes.
So much worse.
It is so much worse. It's so, if it had only been the Harry Potter part epilogue, like if it had only been the epilogue I wrote, it would still be bad, but it would at least be better.
My last prediction was that book 3 would include some kind of change in point of view, a la Breaking Dawn. We would leave Anna's perspective, bonus points if it's randomly Jose. And I'm still a little sad
Very
that this did not happen.
Very disappointed that didn't happen.
We just randomly switched to Jose, and he's just like fishing with his dad. We just follow him for a third of the book.
You know what they could have done? They could have done that. They could have switched to them fishing, and then that chapter ends with the car accident.
They could have done. She could have done that.
Because he's in the car.
Yeah.
In with the car accident, and then that leads into. I mean, it wouldn't have made any sense.
No,
you could have done it. Not like anything else in this thing makes sense. All right, before we get to the final verdict, we wanted to remind you can do us a giant favor, like we said at the beginning, by heading over to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Support us over there and get access to bonus content and all kinds of good stuff. We're not going to do that again. We already said it at the beginning. Also, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, all the social media platforms. Just search for This Film Is Lit. Follow us and interact. We would love it to hear what you had to say about 50 Shades Freed. Katie, it's time for the final verdict.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first, verdict afterward.
Here's the thing. I knew the entire way through the film and the book, to be honest, that I would be giving this to the movie. This movie is much, much better than the book, but it's easily the worst installment of the film franchise. It just feels tired. This was a movie that was made by people going to work and fulfilling their contractual obligations, not people valiantly trying to rescue a story. And you know what? That's fine. This story as a whole doesn't deserve to be rescued. 50 Shades Freed is poorly written from every aspect. Plot, characterization, character arc, dialogue, sentence structure, word choice. The two other books are the same. The series props up a man who emotionally and occasionally physically abuses his partner, violates her privacy, and has to be routinely convinced not to isolate her. It props up a heroine who continually excuses his abuse without addressing the ways that he's manipulated her into doing that. Although Christian seemingly overcomes his various red flag behaviors, we don't see any of that work happen. He's just magically better after receiving Anna's unconditional love. And I'm sorry, but that's a shit message. I know this is fantasy, but that's a shit message. The movies avoid the same fate as the books by tightening the story's plot lines or adding them, softening Christian's character, and removing Anna's inner monologue. We've joked in each episode that the movies look like masterpieces in comparison to the books, and while I don't wholeheartedly agree that Freed fits that narrative, overall, the films massively improve on the source material. But here, at the end of all things, I have to question whether these stories are even deserving of that treatment.
This is definitely the closest score of the series. The book sucked, and this movie also mostly sucked. This is by far the worst in the series for both, and despite some thinly veiled attempts to rectify some of the previous wrongs, it just feels like everyone was going through the motions by the time we got to this conclusion. In the book, Anna finally comes into her own and reflects more closely the Anna of the films. She finally starts to stand up for herself and at least approaches becoming a protagonist that doesn't make you want to rip your hair out. Christian remains the same nightmare abuser for most of the book, but finally magically transforms into the Christian that we get throughout the films by the end of this novel. Once again, the book, and by extension the movie's greatest flaw, is that they are incredibly repetitive, meandering, and poorly written. Our main conflict, Christian's emotional issues and controlling behavior versus Anna's love for him and desire to be in a respectful and equal partnership, was all but solved at the end of the second installment. As such, E.L. James had no choice but to resurrect the corpse of said conflict and puppet it through another 540 pages of mediocre sex scenes and underdeveloped narrative beats. Tack on an honestly unsurprising pro-life subplot and a continued complete misunderstanding of healthy relationships, and you've got yourself a recipe for disaster. Again, the film improves on this slightly by editing the story down to the most vital elements and sparing us from most of the book's fatal flaws. The prose, the repetitive conversations, and Anna's infuriating thoughts. But it doesn't have the same energy or playful self-awareness that the first two films had. As a result, we're left with a film that is more enjoyable than the book, but in a way that is far less noticeable than either of the first two installments because its foundational text is somehow even weaker than the two books that came before it, and the film didn't put in the work to make it much better. The film wins, but it's a Pyrrhic victory. I think I speak for both of us when I say, good riddance, parenthetical time of your life. Katie, what's next?
Up next, we're doing something short and sweet because I'm tired.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Zathura, which is a picture book by TFIL alum Chris Van Allsburg, who also wrote Jumanji.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about its 2005 film adaptation.
Yeah, I am very much like in Night at the Museum or something. Didn't he do another one?
He did Jumanji.
No, I know, but wasn't there a second one?
Polar Express.
Polar Express, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I thought we had done two of his. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to this one because I love Jumanji. Polar Express, the book Polar Express, fan of the movie was fine from my memory. But I'm interested to see. I don't know anything about this film other than it's like sci-fi Jumanji, basically.
Yeah. I know I have seen this movie. I think I probably saw it around the time it came out because I don't remember a ton about it. It has Kristen Stewart in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I literally know zero about this film other than like it's in space.
Pre-Twilight Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, that should be fun. We'll be talking about that in 2 weeks' time. In 1 week's time, we'll be talking about what everybody had to say about 50 Shades Freed and the whole saga. When you're leaving your comments about this, you can an all-encompassing comments you have about the 50 Shades saga, feel free to roll that into your 50 Shades Freed commentary, and we'll discuss all that and doing some other stuff in the prequel. And that'll be in 1 week's time. Until that time, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and everybody else,
Keep reading books.
keep watching movies.
And keep being awesome.